now?
On YouTube. Or
Yeah.
no, if you're in the Zoom. If you're in the Zoom.
I noticed at the beginning of the planning commission meeting last week, like this part of the meeting before the meeting started was like broadcast. And so I just wanted.
It's up because we have to go live a few minutes before we actually start the meeting.
Right.
But I try for council meetings to go back and clip
Mark
that.
just said he can hear us. So I just wanted to make this aware. That, okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Not that I ever say. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order, this regular meeting of the Sonoma City Council on Monday, May 17th. Do you need the countdown, Rebecca? I can restart. You ready to go?
Yeah, just give us a 3, 2, 1. I think we should be good.
3, 2, 1, and we are live. Regular meeting of the Sonoma City Council on this Monday, May 17th at 6:03 p.m. Starting just a touch late, but we're moving through. Go ahead and call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call vote.
Yes. Vice Mayor Agrimonti?
What am I saying here?
It is.
Thanks.
You've done well.
Councilmember Barnett?
Here.
Councilmember Ding?
Here.
Councilmember Harrington?
Present.
Mayor Harvey?
Present.
Thank you.
Great. We have no closed session, so there's no need for a report on the closed session. I'll go ahead and move for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I second.
Boom. Ding. Sliding in before Madeline for the second, and we can have a roll call vote on that, please.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett?
Aye.
Councilmember Ding?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Mayor Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Great. We'll move on to go ahead for comments from the public. Oh, no, we got to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Apologize. Go ahead. Can somebody else lead the pledge? Because I didn't nail it last time. So if you want to, we'll all say it. All right, here we go. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
To
to the flag of the United States of America,
To the
And
to the republic for which
And
stands
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible,
visible,
liberty.
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
justice for all.
All right, we got through it. Well done, everyone. Great. So just a note on how we're doing public comment. We are operating in Zoom. Maybe one of our last meetings in Zoom. So hopefully we can get out of Zoom world soon. But we are operating in Zoom, so everybody's allowed to comment publicly via Zoom. If you are in the attendees list, just go ahead and raise your hand virtually. You can see that little button that says raise your hand. We cannot see you, so don't try to raise it physically. If you're calling in, just dial a *9, and that will raise your virtual hand, and we will know that you would like to speak. We'll bring you on. And just as normal with public comment, it's a 3-minute time limit. There's a possibility that we could be Zoom bombed, in which case we will go ahead and pause all meeting items until we can restart the meeting. And if we're unable to restart the meeting, we'll go ahead and stop it and then go on to a later date. Also would like to note that folks are participating from the comfort of their own homes or offices, and they may have dogs or cats or small children who may pop into the room, and so we are allowing people to turn their cameras off as needed. But if they are leaving the room, they will let us know. So they should all be paying attention if they're off camera. So whether it's counsel or a member of staff, we're going to go ahead and allow that. Just as a, well, so we'll go ahead and open up for comments from the public. This is general public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act. The merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, that's me, for a little while longer, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone. Begin by stating and spelling your name. And if you would like to rise for public comment, please raise your hand. And I'm seeing no one rise, and we'll go ahead and move on to meeting dedications. Go ahead and close public comment, move on to meeting dedications. Number 3, I know that Councilmember Barnett does have a meeting dedication for tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to dedicate tonight's meeting to Ron Chapman. Sonoma has lost one of its most committed volunteers and advocates for historical preservation. After a successful pioneering career in Silicon Valley, Ron moved to our valley 20 years ago, and since his arrival, Ron has been a passionate advocate for the restoration and harvesting of the vineyard and olive trees at General Vallejo's home. His wife, Audrey, shared with me a comment from a state park employee that said he was the heart of the vineyard and the olive grove, the two most important features of the Vallejo home. And because of Ron, those two features have been preserved and protected for the future. Ron was also an advocate for the preservation and history of our town. He was a supporter of both the League for Historic Preservation and the Sonoma Valley Historical Society. And I personally knew Ron for many years as he served on the board of the North of the Mission Neighborhood Association. He was always thoughtful, he asked the best questions, and he had a great vision, not just for the neighborhood, but for our city as a whole. And for all the volunteer work he did in our community, he was never interested in recognition or credit. Ron leaves behind many family members, including 2 children and a sister, and his dear wife, Audrey, who has now lost, in her words, her best friend. She told me Ron was passionate about all things Sonoma and truly loved being a part of our town and volunteering where he felt the greatest need. And just, I think our community was so lucky when Ron and Audrey moved here, and Sonoma will miss and always remember Ron Chapman.
I just wanted to chime in that Ron and Audrey have sent me so many encouraging notes over the years. And the last time I saw them, my dog was a puppy at the same time as theirs about 2 years ago, and we were doing puppy training classes, and I looked forward to seeing the both of them, every week at puppy training class. And he was such a nice man, and I'm really sad for Audrey, and I hope our community comes together to support her in any way that we can, because they're such a lovely family. So.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Barnett, and to you as well, Councilmember Harrington. I guess I don't really, no, I'll do it at the end. Moving on to items. Go ahead.
Harvey, I have another one.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, that is this afternoon I met his wife, Cheryl Free. And a gentleman passed away, actually, that is February 5th of this year. His name is Edward Easton. Both of the couple moved to Sonoma in the 1974. So they stay in Sonoma here almost 40 years, and then they enjoy the Sonoma and 40 years of love and accompany each other. Very, very, the touching story. And he used to a truck driver. And basically they just traveling around the country. But he had a hobby that is reading. Especially he liked reading history and politics. So this is a very, very lovely senior. he was survived by his wife, Cheryl Free, and his stepson, that is Echo. And also his another stepson is Alisa Hayden. This is a wonderful, lovely in the family in our town. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Dang. We're on to item 6.1, discussion, consideration, and possible direction on immediate, medium term, and long-term parking strategies in the Plaza downtown area. David Kiff.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. So this item is a discussion item brought to you for some additional direction. I'm going to put the staff report up on a share screen and thumb through a little bit of that, and I'll be fast and then I'll welcome your questions. And let's see if it's sharing the right screen. So do you see a staff report up there? Okay. So basically, I worked with a little bit with our ad hoc committee, which is the mayor and Councilmember Barnett, as well as with Mark Bodenheimer, and to kind of just get a sense of where we are post parklets, or as parklets are becoming more long term, to try to look at how we can best assist parking in the Plaza area. So we noted some of these findings up here, but I'm going to just jump to the recommendations, and those are in the immediate term. I'm going to be working with the chamber to find ways to better encourage folks to use the Casa Grande lot to park there. And that's as simple as some bold signage. We're going to, if you folks agree, bring something to you that would apply on Sundays, the 3-hour limitation. And then we would also do some follow-up enforcement for the 3-hour parking limitation on Sundays. As a reminder, Sundays you can park there as long as you want around the Plaza. We're going to also work directly with the area businesses to encourage their employees to park off Plaza. Again, the emphasis will be on encouragement right now. And then in the medium term, we're going to talk about maybe making 2 ad hoc groups. One would be the council and the planning commission members working on parking strategies in the longer term, and also a business roundtable that Mark would convene to address kind of fairness issues associated with the parklets as well as parking. And we'd circle back with these 2 groups and come back with with additional guidance that drives a parking study that I'm going to talk about next. You see a number of these looking at removing the Uber Lyft parking that are remaining. Actually, some are buried under a parklet. Making recommendations about bus parking that's not along First Street East, there near the state park properties. We're gonna, as you've talked about many times, try to formalize the Casa Grande lot permanent lease with state parks. We threw in a potential for a bike sharing effort there, and then and I'm going to jump to longer term now. Let me make sure. Let's see. Longer term, we work on updating the parking study that what I think dates back to 2016, and that parking study, we think it went to the planning commission at least, and may not have gone further, but that did a lot nice background about parking needs, but it should be updated. And that parking study would look at all these comprehensive things, from proper signage to using available private lots. The other thing, what I mean, certainly like your feedback on this, is engaging a more defined parking management consultant. And what parking management consultants can do is look at the ways that many cities are using technology to streamline parking. And that means directing people to certain lots in real time. It can also mean applying a fee-based structure, parking rates to spots. And And I don't want you to be too scared by that. I know it's a scary thing for the plaza, been talked about before, but you can now designate this so that residents can get free parking when they register their license plates, maybe 2 of them. Or you can set it up where there's the first 2 hours are free and then the rest for longer term, maybe more. Technologies and apps on your phone can take care of this quite easily with credit cards directly from your phone. Anyway, there's a lot that could be done there. So I am recommending that you consider that within the parking study. And then we talked about other things, including seeing what an open air trolley system might look like for springtime. And I'll stop there and certainly welcome your comments. And I know Mark is on board, is available for comment too, but this is where we wanted to head.
I think it's in maybe your medium and longer term goals here, but just want to highlight one of the things that we had suggested from that ad hoc too was that really focusing on having solutions that come from the businesses, then go out to things like the Historical Society and other groups to really kind of create this cohesive environment, then feeds back into council, back to the businesses to create this really solid long-term strategy. And I think it's important here to note that we recognize at the council that there's a difference in the way that restaurants operate and feel like they use parking and the way that retailers operate and feel like they use parking. And I think that our goal here is to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, and that all of them are a part of that. We have some legacy retailers that are on the plaza that feel like they're more local serving, and they really want that kind of churn to make sure that there's spaces in front of them. And we have other people that really, they seem to thrive off of having more walking around the plaza, more time for people to park. And so this is always going to be something the public will be engaged in. And also just to note that we're really trying to reach out as much as possible to every single business that's on the plaza to really make sure that they feel part of the solution here. Councilmember Harrington, I see you unmuting.
Dave, can you put up the staff report again? Thanks. So, on the Uber and Lyft, I don't think those are, I don't know what we would do to determine the effectiveness. I think I've suggested previously that we should get rid of those spots and just make them regular parking or make them electric vehicle charging stations if possible. I think opening up other lots is a great idea. So for the past 3 years on Casa Grande, I know Kathy Capriola reported to us numerous times that she had attempted to secure a lease, but was unable to do that with the state. I don't know how much actually went into that, but the reports from Kathy were that it was essentially impossible. So I'd want to get at least her notes on why that failed, because that's a project that we asked the city manager to work on for years that couldn't be accomplished. So I'd like to know more about why that didn't happen, or if it's possible, so that we don't waste a lot of time if it is impossible. On the bike sharing, we also had the, I want to say the CSEC looked into that and there was a investigation done into bike sharing, and that it wasn't possible for Sonoma because we didn't have the number of places for them to go, because you could get it at the plaza, but then where would you go with the bike? So I think that's actually already been investigated, and there's a staff report on that from the CSEC. And I think on the off plaza employee parking, that's a big problem and has been. So anything we can do to, encourage that is great. On the longer term ones, I would never support paid parking on the plaza. And that's not something I would be interested in looking into at all. And I think the rest of them, a parking management contract maybe, but it would depend on the cost. And I think a trolley, is kind of a maybe. One of the major problems, not only with the plazas, not just the parking, it's obviously that people constantly walk in the middle of the street and not at the crosswalks, and it slows traffic tremendously. So I think that's something else, that if we had somebody flagging traffic, that's one of our problems with congestion in general, is that people are constantly walking through the street drunk. tourists primarily. That's a problem that perhaps could be wrapped up in this. So those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I had suggested a couple years ago that we have a cute traffic cop at the intersection of Broadway and Napa Street to kind of help with some of that pedestrian crosswalk stuff. It's an interesting point for sure.
Or maybe just like a sandwich board that says this isn't Disneyland. Like actually it's a functioning city. Like don't stumble into the street drunk. That'd be great. But
other council members?
Yeah, could I chime in?
Heck yeah.
Thank you. So let's see. I'd like to see all the parking go down to 2 hours. Years ago, when the 3 hour went in, the restaurants basically said, we don't need 3 hours. We could use 2. That's fine. So I'll go back to what they have offered. And the thing with the employees, can't they just get ticketed and maybe they would stop parking where they're not supposed to be? And I think that started, 4 to 6 weeks ago. I saw, I think the position is called VIP. And I saw her doing her chocks on tires. So that might end, that extended parking without caring about others. And the signage, I think, is a great idea, but where are we taking them? Back where? And, there's nothing back there. And I agree with Councilmember Harrington. We begged for our city manager to talk to those in charge, those at higher levels about the Casa Grande parking lot. It never happened. We wouldn't be talking about parking issues if we had solved this probably 2 to 3 years ago. The other thing is I would like the tour buses off the plaza. It's not that far to walk from Casa Grande to here. I don't feel that it's that far. And what is it? The parking tickets. If I visited here, I would be willing to pay $20 for parking at the Casa Grande parking lot because I could be here all day. Come in the morning, leave at night. I would be willing to pay $20. I don't think that's asking too much. And that's what I'd like to see back there. I think that might be it. And I really think number one is Casa Grande parking lot. And I don't know if I could live another year without talking about it.
Thank you, Councilmember Agrimonti.
Thanks.
Councilmember Ding?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have been talking with the same topic in the years by years, decades by decades, the same issue. We make the circle again and again. So basically we needed to take the action. For example, the state, Casa Grande, we definitely need to work with the city staff. And if any necessary for us, city council join your meeting, give them some of the pressure, we are ready to join you guys. Yes, and we need a push. For example, give us a time sheet this month. How many times we need a contact with the Bill Dawes office. And each, the meeting, we just report what's going on, what's happening. And then for sure, we can get little by little in the progress. So otherwise, just talking, no any meaningful. And then this number one. Number two, the education also is important. And a lot of the restaurant owners, restaurant employees, and stores employees and park the car around the plaza. Again and again, I'm not sure what is the efficient way to tell these employees. I believe, should have the business owners have some the ways to ask and also request the employee, please park your car in the Casa Grande. So that is number two. Number three, again, that is another long term and a consideration. And also we need to thinking about, the shuttle bus and, those kind of thing, that isn't a far away, out of the town gateway from the city. That is my, suggestion. Thank you.
Councilmember Barnett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to support a lot of, probably all of staff's recommendations for both the immediate, medium, and long term. As Councilman Ding just said, this is an issue that we have been discussing for years. And as I said at our last meeting, I remember Vice Mayor Agrimonti during the cheese factory discussion a few years ago, when parking was such an issue about that, or was such an important issue for that project. It is up to the city council and the city of Sonoma to help solve our downtown parking issues. It really limits potential economic development downtown. And so as our parking study that we need to update from 2014 said, and just brief context, just to sort of go into what Councilman Ding was saying, from the Index Tribune of December 10th, 1948, the mayor said that, the parking problem downtown could be improved by having merchants and their employees refrain from parking on the plaza. That was 1948. In 1953, the headline of the front page of the Index Tribune was "Parking meters for the plaza recommended by city planning consultants." And in 1970, there was a whole discussion about a parking district, and none of this has ever happened. And so 70 years later, hopefully we can finally address this, and over the next year and a half, finally create a solution for our downtown parking situation. I actually agree with Vice Mayor Agrimonti. I think going down to 2 hours on the plaza makes a lot of sense, and I would support that. I agree with staff's recommendation to also regulate parking on Sundays. I think that's sort of outdated and probably doesn't make sense in today's sort of tourist-based economy. I also support removing the Uber Lyft spaces. I think there's only 3 or 4, but I think just practically Uber and Lyft drops you off directly where you're going or picks you up directly where you're in front of. I don't think they wait at these spaces. I support the idea of the ad hoc council planning ad hoc to study this. I think we need to be open to everything, and everything needs to be on the table. And so that's why I support either updating that parking study or having some sort of parking management consultant engaged in 70 years, because we had a report from 1953. Let's see what our report of 2021 has to say. But I have a feeling it's going to say something similar, that in today's world, paid parking, that's obviously very controversial. And I think we need to look at it. And as our city manager said, there's a lot of innovative technology that you could have someone just going around or a car or whatever, just reading license plates. And if you're a city resident, if you submit your license plate, you have 2 hours of free parking, and maybe visitors don't. Or I think there are a lot of different ways we can look at that. And so I would be open to just learning about the technology and seeing what the city, what restaurants and retail on the plaza would be open to, what city residents would be open to, and what we as a city council would be open to. And obviously the final piece, we need to definitely secure a lease on that Casa Grande parking lot. And to Councilwoman Harrington's point, I don't know why it's taken so long. I don't know why it's impossible to do with the state, but I think it's important for the city to lease that lot and ultimately look for different look for potential sources of revenue to improve our parking situation. And so I just want to thank staff for putting this together, and I'm excited to move forward on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and appreciate all the comments from every member of council. Kind of what I'm hearing, I guess, is a desire from most people to kind of look at all options, maybe some controversy over the pay for parking, and a really strong emphasis on nailing down this Casa Grande lease. The one thing I would say is, it's interesting. We did a walk around the plaza on Friday, a couple Fridays ago. Councilmember Barnett, myself, Dave Kiff, and Mark. And I'd actually support if we just want to bring Mark in here, so you can have a little bit longer of a comment than just 3 minutes. I don't know, the rest of the council, does anybody have an issue with that? Okay. So we did a walk around the plaza. There was certainly completely full on the plaza. Every single space was basically taken. You go to Casa Grande, it's about 33%, if that, full. So there is parking that's significant on the plaza. The one thing I worry about with pay for parking back there is whether or not people would use it. But I think certainly if we reduce the amount of hours that people can park on the plaza to 2 hours, and it is actually enforced, then they'll move. Then people would move. And I don't disagree with Councilmember Agrimonti that they would probably pay between $10 and $20 or more to park there. That's not uncommon in San Francisco and other places. But I don't want to create a situation where residents are afraid of going to the plaza or concerned about it. That's why if we were to go to a pay for parking situation, and I think it is important for us to research all options, I would never support one that didn't create a buyout and an option for residents to get free 2 hours. I think it's our plaza and they should be able to park there. Getting rid of Sundays, I totally support. I would be interested in saying, maybe we do accept Mondays or Tuesdays. I think it'll be better from an enforcement schema to have like somebody who's on 5 days a week and able to do, plaza rotation Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just kind of makes sense to me from just kind of a hiring standpoint. I'll say as somebody who worked on the plaza for one of the wineries, we always knew that if it rained, we were not going to get chalked. It just didn't happen during those days. And then we would know if they were coming around. And there were quite a few weekends and Fridays where you knew you weren't going to get chalked. And I started biking to the plaza and things like that. So it became less and less of a problem for me, but it's something that really needs to be stepped up. And I agree that if there's just enforcement and people are regularly getting $30 tickets and things like that, they'll move off. As far as 2 hour parking, I would like to hear more from the business community about what they think about that. I brought it up to a couple retailers that I had talked to and they were not necessarily supportive. I think there's a perception that you want to be able to have lunch and then walk around the plaza or grab a couple tastings and walk around the plaza. Of course, if we're pushing people to Casa Grande, I think that would be key. And signage is so critical for that back parking lot. People don't know it's there. I think the idea of working with Waze or Google Maps is really smart. Why not use these technologies? But good old signage will be helpful. And I don't think it's well signed right now. And the evidence is in the fact that people keep circling the plaza rather than making that left turn and getting free parking back there in Casa Grande that's easily walkable. So that'd be about the whole of my comments. Oh, with bus parking, I agree. Keep them off of First Street East, get them in that back Casa Grande parking lot. And that definitely would be a good pilot for pay for parking there, is those kind of commercial bus routes. We've got a beautiful thing here on the Sonoma Plaza, and we should use it to our advantage. Would love to see a parking for parks kind of a program where the money's used.
So, and Mr. Mayor, can I just ask if that is can I just ask that our priority, I think all of the ideas are wonderful, but I still think if we need to tackle that Casa Grande, we need the time schedule. We need to do something because, for me, that's like leaving money on the table. And you've heard me all.
Agreed. I think we heard from all 5 council members.
We need to have an action plan soon.
Yes, agreed. I'm going to go ahead and let Mark, if you've got comments, go right ahead.
Great, thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to start off thanking you, Councilmember Barnett, and City Manager Kiff for taking the time to go out and do that, kind of walk it out and take a look. It really changes your perspective when you're out there on the ground, seeing what's happening on the street and what's happening with the parking. So appreciate you guys taking the time. A few things. I think everybody's done a great job of framing all of these things, and the staff report was really thorough and detailed. The main thing that I think I wanted to make sure everyone's aware of is that the paid parking idea, this is not envisioned as a revenue generator for the city. This is something where we are thinking about this as a strategic tool to help the community, to help the local businesses. The revenue that's going to be generated from this would be put into things that would help, beautify the plaza, make transportation upgrades, things that are really going to actually benefit the community. And so I think it's really important to just kind of cover the spirit of what that idea is trying to accomplish. And I do think that there's a lot of, we're going to hear a good amount of opposition for some people in the community. And I think Councilmember Harrington, you bring up good points, and I think those voices are important. We need to hear all those things. All of these ideas that have been put forward tonight are going to get a lot of input from the community, from the businesses, the residents, from people from surrounding communities that are stakeholders here as well. So it's all to be determined. Couple things I agree with.
However, Mark, thank you, but the final decision is still with this council.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I agree 100%. A couple other things. The Casa Grande lot, I agree. We do need to make a more formal push. I think that one of the ideas we had discussed was bringing State Senator Dodd or Assemblyman Levine into a meeting with the council to sort of make this a direct request to them from this body. Vice Mayor Agrimonti, you and your colleagues, the decision makers up there. I think that it will be really important to have them hear it directly from you and take it as, an official request from the city. So that's something that I think can be moved forward after we explore all of these things. Little details to sort out, bike sharing might be just more bike racks at the plaza that are more functional than artistic. 2 hours versus 3 hours. I agree. There's good reasons and reasons to be cautious about both. Love the idea about the Sunday thing, but who knows? Maybe there's some pushback from some people in the community on that too. So we're standing by to help. We will certainly do our part to do outreach with the business community and welcome feedback from residents as well. But just here to stand by and support you guys so that all of you guys on council get to make this decision. Thank you.
I just want to make the point really quick, just because I'm seeing some comments in the chat and things. Nothing has been decided at this point. We are merely talking about and giving some direction to staff here. So we're deciding what kind of things we might want to have conversations about in the future, what kind of things we might not. Clear direction from council is definitely let's get on that Casa Grande parking lot and let's open the door for other options. So there's no specifics right now. This is just opening the door to having a conversation about the future parking in the plaza. With that, we'll go to Councilmember Barnett.
I just wanted to note, in 2019, I believe the 6th District Court of Appeal ruled that chalking tires is unconstitutional. And I think that only applies to, I think, the states in the 6th District. But one of the reasons why I want to look at the new technologies is, to the mayor's point, with technology, we could basically say parking is free Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Parking is free always for residents of perhaps the Sonoma Valley, the school district, however we want to determine it. There's just a lot of options here, and we may get to a point where we can't chalk tires anymore. And so we need to be sort of open, if that makes its way to the Supreme Court and the entire country, they've decided that that is an unreasonable search, which is what this district decided chalking tires was. If we can't do that, we can't regulate our parking anymore. And so we have to be sort of open to sort of be forward thinking about what's possible. And that's why I support that sort of parking management analysis.
I just love that Supreme Court decision. And it's almost like one of those people who got a parking ticket and said, I'm going to lawyer up. They finally did. And looks like they won. If we could go ahead and open it up for public comment here. And I'm seeing no one rise for public comment. So we'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the council for final comments or thoughts. Councilmember Barnett.
I was just going to say, it looks like Dave Ransom's hand.
Oh,
Yes, it popped up.
let's go ahead and bring Dave in. That's fine.
Hi, Dave Ransom. I live in Santa Rosa. I go to church in Sonoma. I was very pleased to hear Councilman Barnett expand the idea of resident to the Springs, the rest of Sonoma Valley. I think that's an important question. If you get to the point where you're going to charge folks from outside or make things more difficult from outside. Thanks very much. That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Last chance. 3, 2, 1, and we're closing. Bring it back to council. No additional comments from the council. Looks like. Dave, do you have everything you need to move forward?
I believe so. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm operating off my phone here. We'll go on to item 6.2, discussion, consideration, possible action on future council meetings as COVID-19 pandemic ends. City Manager David Kiff.
So Mayor and Council, this will be a very brief one. As you can see in the staff report, the city clerk and I have been working on getting you back to live in-person meetings, and we just wanted to make sure we're on the same track as you were. So the vision is that beginning in August, with assuming a July dark period, beginning in August, you'd be back with full in-person meetings with two components. You'd be able to have the in-person testimony and comments by residents, and we'd also continue with the Zoom opportunities for those that wanted to stay in the privacy of their own home in the evenings, and that would go forward indefinitely. And I think a lot of cities are doing that. I think that's kind of a silver lining of the pandemic, as we realize we can communicate more easily with your constituents, our constituents. So that's the fundamental thing that we've been talking about. We did want to look at June with you. We think we can come back to one live in-person meeting in honor of someone that's leaving. And the second, but the key with that first meeting in June is we wouldn't be able to have a Zoom component all ready to go on that. It would be a little too cumbersome. The technology wouldn't be in place yet. So it'd be kind of a special exception for Mayor Harvey, as Mayor Harvey's leaving. And then the question is what to do with the second meeting in June. Rebecca and I talked about this quite a bit, and we felt like it wouldn't make sense to train all of our staff and get all the equipment up at rushed in time for the 22nd. So we're just to go dark in July. So what we're requesting is permission to have a live meeting June 7th, but there won't be a Zoom component because it won't be ready. We go back to a Zoom component only for June 21st. And then starting with the first Monday in August, you'd roll right into live meetings with Zoom component. And if you're comfortable with that, that's what we're recommending.
Is the proposal to wear masks throughout the whole meeting and have people masked or unmasked?
Great question. The concept would be, certainly after August, is that people would be comfortable with being unmasked. However, if you were a person who wanted to wear a mask, either because there's a reason you haven't gotten a vaccination, you could either stay outside the building or come into the building with a mask on.
What about in June?
June would be, because of the governor's new guidance, the guidance today was that the masking requirements would stay in place through June 15th. You would be wearing masks in June 7th.
Councilmember Barnett?
That's just guidance, right? I mean, the federal government has said masks are not necessary indoors, correct? If you're vaccinated? Meaning, could we, if you're vaccinated, have a meeting without masks before June 15th?
Well, it's a good question. As I understand it, the federal government's guidance is superseded in part by the state and the county not following that CDC order directly until June 15th. In other words, the county of Sonoma and the state of California will still have a mask requirement for indoors.
Well, okay. I mean, I don't want there to be a special thing for me that breaks CDC guidelines or any sort of COVID-19 rules. So, and I definitely don't want the public to feel like they're unable to come to a meeting and attend if they have any amount of uncomfortability there. So at this point, I don't know that I'm comfortable with saying that we're going to do it in person on 7th of June. I would love to do that. I think it would be wonderful. But at the same time, if there's one member of the public that doesn't feel comfortable to go in to the building to make public comment that wants to, then I'm not comfortable with that, frankly.
I wonder, I'm just going to think out loud with you, what if we set up something that was outside?
In the amphitheater?
Council meeting?
In the amphitheater.
It's a nice
Why
day.
not?
That is
Great idea.
that is very creative. Yeah.
I would love
For that.
that would be amazing.
Yeah. That
Can-
is farmer market. We can change the date to the Tuesday. The farm.
During the farmer's market.
Yeah.
That would be wild. I
Bring
can-
the city council to where the people are. I like it, Jack. It's good.
I mean,
I'm actually fine with doing a meeting with the mask on. I was just checking. I mean, it's a little annoying to wear a mask for however many hours, but we can do it. I'm not suggesting don't do it. I wanted to know what the
It's
deal
only
was.
what, one meeting.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I'm fine with it. We can do it in person. It's, up to the mayor. I'm happy to do it by Zoom or in person, whatever people want to do. I just want to clarify what we're doing, COVID wise.
Can I make a comment, Mr. Mayor?
sure.
Maybe, but with the technology, we may be able to still have individuals call in via Zoom to comment, but you guys would be not in the Zoom call and they would not necessarily be on any of the streaming devices. Only the audio would be able to be heard. And I have or if you guys probably kicking me under the table right now for putting this out there, but I think we could possibly make that happen, where if a member of the public wanted to comment via Zoom, they could. It would just be with the understanding that they would not be part of the stream, like digitally, but possibly, and maybe not even be able to capture their comment via the stream, because that's part of the technology issues that we have, is the switching back and forth between our different streams and the public television, which is what we're working through. But there would be the possibility for them to Zoom in and comment if they wanted.
That would be good.
So basically we'll work on it.
Right. Okay. Councilmember Barnett?
I was just going to say, I'm fine with the in-person on June 7th with masks. I'm also fine with it without masks because the CDC said that that's fine, and I believe in science. And that was the whole reason we got vaccines, was so we could go back to normal. And so if you're vaccinated and inside, the CDC said that's okay, but clearly the governor has wanted to wait another month, and that's his prerogative. But I do really like, I think it was Councilman Ding, I like the idea of the outside meeting. I think that could be unique and cool and special, and it should be warm in June. And I think the amphitheater would be a perfect location for it. And so if there is support for that, I would support that as well.
I love the idea of an outdoor meeting. It'd be really fun. We'd probably have to start a little earlier, just because cold and light and everything like that. And then don't we have to have them filmed? Or isn't that our public records now, is filming them?
Correct.
There might be some issues, but I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
I think it would be wonderful. I mean, I would love it. And if it was during farmer's market, that would be hilarious. And I think the public comment that night would be just amazing.
A Zoom bomb, right? Yeah.
Rebecca and I can try and work on it. She's kicking me under the table, even though we're in different places. But
We'll work on it and let us know. And
okay,
I'll be here. So thank you.
Thank you. I think I have direction. Thanks.
Okay. Great. On to the next one. What do we got? Here, presentation on preliminary city budget and capital improvement program for fiscal year 21 to 22. Let me know what you got. David Kidd.
Let me see if I can make this work. So this is going to be a combination of a presentation. This is a little longer presentation. This is kind of the meat of the evening, except for one of David's items, between me and Sue, and then Fergie's going to chime in. But I also know that we're not going to bore you to death with budget stuff. So I'm going to try to move along pretty quickly. I'm going to do a screen share. Okay, can you see the first screen? It says City of Sonoma FY 21-22 preliminary budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madeline. I'm going to move the next slide. Just going to check once to make the slide, see the slide moved. All right. Can you confirm that it did move?
Yes, it moved.
Thank you. All right. No more questions. So just a wrap up of where the last year has been. Certainly you folks have lived it. I've lived it for a part of the year. There was a lot of city activity regarding trying to respond to COVID-19, including working with the business community, coordinating with the regional, our regional friends. You deferred a water increase. We worked on food security, rental assistance, and eviction ordinance. And then that whole economic recovery really did soak up a lot of staff time and effort and money to make sure that our retail industry survived. And generally it did. I think that's the good news with all that. And then you layer that upon what we did with financial planning and stabilization. We aggressively went after trying to get federal aid, which the good news is that did come in this past February and March. We worked on budget reductions, Kathy did with you. We worked on adjustments to the police and fire contract, and we did some multi-year forecasting. And then thankfully in Sonoma, the voters approved the sales tax, and that was just an extension. It took the cap off. It wasn't anything new. I'm going to move to the next slide. Just a reminder of what happened about a year ago. We were assuming for the current year, the year that we were in, that there would be a loss of about 2.7 million, and we used a combination of reserves and expenditure reductions to address that. And then in the budget that you adopted in June, so a year ago next month, we also assumed a $4.6 million revenue loss. And then there was a combination of use of reserves and expenditure reductions to that. I'm pleased to let you know today that both of those scenarios did occur to somewhat, but not as bad as we thought. For instance, we originally projected at 871,000 use. We only had to use 660. So we were 211,000 to the good on that one. And then we're projecting that by the end of June, the end of next month, we only had to use 1.5 million in reserves versus the 2.1 million expected. So almost 600,000 to the good. So both of those things help our overall fund balance. We still did have to use reserves, but it weren't as bad as we expected. I'm going to shift this over to Sue, and Sue, I'll move the slideshow for you to talk about what our 5-year forecast looks like.
Hey, good evening, Mayor Harvey and council people, council members.
Sue, you need to speak up just a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So 5-year forecast, we didn't find the 5-year forecast. It's a way to identify trends in revenues and expenditures to see impacts and plan for adjustments over time. And it's a tool to inform decision-making affecting long-term financial sustainability. It's dynamic. It's regularly updated based on new information, which we get quite frequently. And it's a starting point or a baseline. And a financial forecast is not a budget. It's or labor relations plan, a one-time endeavor, or what will be. So this is very small. It's our general fund 5-year forecast, and it's actually 6 years, but I wanted to include year one.
Hey, Sue, your sound quality is kind of coming in and out. I don't know if anyone else is having.
Let's see. Is that better?
That's better.
Thank you.
This is a large spreadsheet that's on a small page, and so I'm not going to bore you with all the numbers in there, but it's just to show you that we have a 6-year forecast. It's really, we started year one as when the pandemic started, so we included it.
Sue, the sound quality is pretty bad.
Oh.
I can take over, Sue, if you want to maybe
Okay,
try to.
I'll try and figure out what is going on here.
Okay. So as
You
Sue,
have headphones plugged into your computer? Sometimes that happens. Because usually you're pretty good.
what? Why don't I'll go for a little bit, and when Sue's able to come back.
All right.
Okay. So what our 5-year forecast looked like, as Sue is explaining, we're pointing out what the budget looked like here in 2019-20. We're showing here what our actual budget deficit was. It was 660. We're showing here what we expected our deficit to be in the following year, the current year that we're in. It was actually 1.4 million, not 2.3 million, sorry, 2.06 million. And then the federal money comes in, which is very much appreciated because we were running a deficit this year. It was smaller. Sorry, now we're going to look at the coming year, the budget year. We are projecting an operating deficit for the coming year, and that's primarily because the revenues we're very conservative about our revenue estimates, and especially with sales tax and TOT. So you can see some of them are coming up, but they're not coming up as much as they could. They should be back here in the year 4 numbers. And then we start to climb out of this here by year 6 with, again, with fairly conservative revenue estimates. And that's what this forecast is showing. So climbing out slowly, but definitely climbing out. And here's a picture of what the actual reserves look like. We started before the pandemic here in the mid to high 9s. We went down to 9 or so. We're coming back. Our biggest cut was this past year, where we're about in the 7s. The money, we add the 2.078 to it. We're back above 8. Again, we're kind of down a little lower in both years and then coming back in 24, 25. Again, I'm going to emphasize one more time, this assumes fairly conservative revenue estimates that we're already seeing are a little bit better than what we're estimating. We're just trying to be cautious with you. So the reasons to be optimistic, we do see, of course, the pandemic seems to be coming to its end. You can see all the reasons why we just mentioning, and then California is on track to fully open the economy on June 15th. We did get the federal relief with the 2.08 million. And that can be used for revenue losses. Reasons to be cautious still. We really don't know what the end of this pandemic caused recession will look like, especially for the tourist industry. Sorry, this kind of crunched. We're certainly finding, as you folks all know, that there are not enough people in the local workforce to accommodate some job needs, especially in the hospitality industry. Childcare is an issue. So we're actually, a group of us were on a phone call today to try to work on that. And then while we are seeing the hotels bounce back, what is not bouncing back so fully is midweek use. So the corporate travel, that may never come back. It may not come back for a long time. But certainly summer will tell us more about that as we move forward. So jumping to the budget that you're about to see, we did look at it through the pandemic lens. We were cautious about our projections. We updated the forecast with those cautious projections. And then we are seeing that there'll be a recovery and we'll head back to a balanced operating budget. I'm going to see if Sue can chime in and take it from here if she's back online.
I'll try again. So can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We'll see if that works. So this is just an overview, a large overview of what our preliminary.
You're good.
No? Is that working?
As long as you stay really close to your mic, Sue, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So this is just a large overview of the general fund and the capital improvement funds. And again, this is kind of a big picture of what our general fund preliminary budget is. Our operating revenue is, general fund operating revenue is 18.8 million.
It's pretty bad, Sue.
Okay.
Sorry.
I might stop working. I've got it on my Zoom. I don't know. Sorry.
I'll come back. That's okay. I'll take it over again.
All right. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. So again, our general fund is looking like a $20 million fund sources with expenditures at 21. I'll talk specifically about the expenditures and why that number is important. Again, this amount does not include the Federal American Rescue Plan funds. We wanted to show you exactly what operations look like. But here are the things we tried to fund in this. We did want to do the downtown parking strategic plan, the study. We do want to put some money into Broadway and the Highway 12 pedestrian safety. There is capital for Plaza and Depot Park improvements. There is some funds in there for housing opportunities and strategies, including a little bit for the Haven House. We're going to be putting more money into the cemetery. Hold on just a second. I apologize. Sorry, I had dogs going crazy there. We're going to put some money into the cemetery analysis, and then we are assuming some revenue from cannabis. And again, here's a summary of our revenues. You saw how these lay in the context of the long-term financial plan. I'm going to point out to you here, the TOT is projected to be 76% of pre-pandemic normal. So that really is a significant reduction to our revenue. We're all hopeful it will be higher than that, but we're not comfortable going higher just yet. Certainly the next couple of months will make will show whether we're too conservative on that. I mentioned some additional revenue sources, the 2.7 from the American Rescue Plan. The cannabis tax, we're being very conservative to see it because hopefully that will come in. But we're just looking at 5,000 for the first fiscal year and then 20,000 for each fiscal year thereafter. Expenditure wise, you folks know that a majority of our costs are for staffing. The fire and safety contracts are important and costly. They include pension costs within both fire and safety. This budget does include a 2.5% to 5.5% increase in wages. And these are generally consistent with previously approved MOUs where some employees agreed to defer that for a year. Well, that is coming due at this point. Some of the major increases within the base budget for the fiscal year include $500,000 for the sheriff's contract, and then another $109,000 for our increased pension liability. And I'm going to talk next about public safety. 59% of our budget is in police and fire. That's about typical for a municipality these days. The sheriff's office is proposing a 12% increase. We're recommending that we add back a deputy sheriff, that we add back a community services officer, but not until January. These two positions were held vacant. It also includes an increase in traffic officer coverage to assist in speed control and pedestrian safety. So that is an existing position that's going to morph to a traffic position, which requires special pay. The fire district budget is also up. It includes a component for the SAFER grant employees assigned to us. It includes additional costs for outside billing, but these come back to us in terms of revenue, and you can see what the increase in the PERS unfunded actuarial liability is. And community activities, we're recommending that we go back up to their full funding. This year they were cut by 15% because these are important programs for the community, of course. We're going to come back in June 7th with the 3-year contracts that you're used to seeing. Again, restoring the funding to bring that back up to where they were. And the rest of this is generally no changes. Full financial support for the Sebastiani Theater, the Fare Free Transit Program, and then we'll have some additional funding in there for the Parks Project Contractor, a one-time donation to the Redwood Empire Food Bank. This is our homelessness support. It's about the same as it will be the current year into next year. It's about 35,000. You can see some of the components of that. The one-time expenses, some of which I mentioned a Plaza tree assessment, the cemetery analysis, council directed studies. I'll speak about this in just a moment, but I think I'm going to need to up this a bit. The Redwood Empire Food Bank. Fergie, if you're with us, I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about this slide in the CIP so that folks get a good picture of what they're seeing there.
Yeah, thanks, City Manager Kiff. Mayor Harvey, members of the council, the agenda packet included detailed descriptions of the capital improvement program projects, the program overall, and the diverse funding sources that go into the city CIP. This slide focuses on projects with general fund budget requests. The first few are kind of routine, so let's focus on the fourth one on the list, T10. So I know the council's interested, as City Manager Kiff mentioned earlier, in investing in pedestrian safety on Broadway. So if council chose to put funding towards this project, the city would request that Caltrans allow the city to install and maintain pedestrian safety features in the state right of way along Broadway. Our estimated cost for that is $232,000. The last two on the slide are both at Depot Park. I think you're aware that when we built the First Street West drainage improvements along the Depot Park frontage, we removed roots of eucalyptus trees. Turned out some of those roots were wrapped around a gas line that served the Depot Park Museum. So they've been without heat since then, but the museum's not open. So this proposal would allow us to convert the HVAC system in the museum to all electric. That's consistent with council goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So that's what that item in that request is about, all electric energy efficient HVAC for Depot Park Museum. And that Depot Park Museum building is very old. It needs a new roof. So it's an opportunity to do a roof with solar at that building. That's the last one on the list. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Madeline.
Madeline. So I don't have any of these slides. I have my own packet on my iPad. I don't have any of this information. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't have it.
Well, we were just working on it today. We tried to reflect what's in the, I respect what you're saying though. And that's why this is our kind of our preliminary discussion, because you're not literally adopting the budget tonight. You're going to give us some commentary, hopefully, and thoughts, and then we'll take that back and wrap it up into a proposed budget on the 7th.
Yeah, well, so
Yes.
unfortunately, I understand what you're saying, but I look at all of this and then it's changed. So it's, it's not comfortable. It's not, this seems to happen quite often before you were even here, Mr. Kiff. So I'm just saying, I'm scrambling, looking to see if I missed an update, and there's nothing here. So, all right, I just wanted to make that comment.
So Councilmember Agrimonti, when you're looking at the packet, maybe after the meeting, or you can look at it now, there was a lot of detail provided about the CIP, and it started with slides that talked in general about the CIP, and then there are a bunch of tables. And so in those tables, there is a table that has general fund as the first column. So what's represented on this slide is consistent with what's in that table. And all these projects are
presented differently
in the packet. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, but presented differently. I don't recognize any of this. So I'm just.
Okay, I hear you.
I guess I have a question about this. So I think we approved, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we approve a multi-year capital improvement plan 1 or 2 years ago? And I understand that the HVAC for the Depot Park Museum is kind of a emergency, unexpected, but the roof was not on there. So I'm wondering, how does this impact our other capital improvement projects that we previously planned last year? What is getting bumped in order to do these?
It's a great question. These are general fund requests, so they don't bump anything else. It's the general fund. If it bumped anything else, it would be other general fund requests because there's limited amount of general fund dollars available.
So of the plans that we had previously, all of them are going to go forward, and these are in addition to the ones that we already authorized last year?
Yeah, the first three, like I said, are ongoing, more routine requests for general funds, but the last three are all new, and they are new general fund requests.
And am I wrong that maybe I'm missing it, didn't we do a 5-year capital improvement plan last year? We approved that, right?
We did a very comprehensive one 2 years
Yeah.
ago.
2 years ago.
Did an update last year, did another update this year. So even the plan is adopted for 5 years. It is reviewed every year and brought back as an updated plan for the council to consider.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I mean, I guess, why wasn't the roof and the solar on there if that is an emergent need?
One of the reasons it wasn't on there is that our agreement with the Historical Society says they will maintain the building.
This is actually, Councilmember Harrington, this is actually, they're still proposing that they fund half of this. So we think it's probably an $86,000 project, but they're kicking in 44 of it.
Oh, okay.
So you would see a revenue line item, and we're cautious about booking that, but Patricia has committed to funding half of the roof.
Okay, so it's really so we would pay for all of the HVAC and half the roof?
That's correct.
And so can you hear me now? Because I think I fixed my microphone.
Perfect.
The other thing that has happened in the last 2 years is that we really reduced our general fund funding to the CIP just based on, because we didn't have any revenue. And so last year, our funding for the CIP was extremely reduced. And even for 1920, what we had budgeted, we actually reduced it quite a bit. So, we're trying to catch up now, but so that's why it'll come back every year, with the projects that can be funded now from the general fund. So.
I guess, yeah, so this could be an offline conversation about what we thought was going to happen this year versus what is in here. And in terms of things getting bumped, maybe that's the questions. What do we think would happen? What were we setting money aside for to do this year that is not getting done, but we are going to do the roof, which is a new item. I mean, I don't think if they're going to do half of it, I don't think it's a bad thing to do. Since we spent time planning what capital improvements we would do and planning to replace a roof and put in solar seems like something you would plan in advance. I just want to know.
We could definitely bring that back to you for the 7th. That's a good discussion to have.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that Assistant City Manager Casey's making, that we did take a lot of general fund dollars out of CIP projects and could certainly report back on those. I want to make one more comment about the roof and why it's coming up right now. 2 things. One, we've had some severe wind events that have shown the frailty of that roof. When pieces of the roof blow off when it's windy, it becomes more apparent that it's an immediate need. And also as we invest in or consider investing in HVAC for the museum, making the building more energy efficient by replacing the roof, given its current condition, is a priority.
Great, thank you.
I have a question regarding capital improvement budget, T4. That is too teeny tiny, the words, but I think that is a sidewalk inspection and the repair. That is a $10,000. I haven't looked into in detail, but definitely, yeah, we need to discuss, and it's very, very serious, because I am the new council member, but already 4 or 5 people are approaching me, report about the sidewalk issue, especially behind Nathanson Creek and the park. That is a fine street. and locking the streets. I visited over there and, several times. That is really dangerous. You know, the tree and the roots lifted in the sidewalks, and something like in the Broadway several years ago. And then I know here we have some the responsibility issue as house owners or communities responsibility or our cities the responsibility. A lot of the question and mark. And neighbors, communities, a lot of the complaints. And then I really don't know how to address this issue. Definitely, you know, we need to consider because the security and the safety that is most important. Over there, anytime, you know, we will see an accident. Right now, the house owner puts in a sign, puts on the sidewalk and warning the people, oh, don't close. And some of the neighbors and the child, they couldn't, you know, ride the bicycles because, you know, they're bumped. You know, that is not a new issue, but if you really, that is our city's responsibility. Definitely, that in a fund is not enough. I reviewed the documents in the year of 2013. We do have a city sidewalk. The sidewalk and the trip and the safety, some of the policy. They have an 11 on the faces. I already saw that. Looks like you already finished on the 10 faces, but one more left, that is this city area. So if you think that is the area and the $10,000, that is definitely isn't short. Yeah. So that is maybe is a too detail. I would like to discuss with the Colleen in the detail. You know, I haven't done any research. I just read and the policy. You know, I concern very much, and also the neighbors in that area. About every day. Sometimes when I visit over there and without notice, they saw me. Wow, they are so excited. We said, wow, they find the resolution. I said, no, I'm not in the resolution. I just look at it. And so definitely it's the time we should go over there and visit, review our policy, and make an adjustment for our fund. If really that is our responsibility, we need to take some action. Thank you.
I could make a comment on that if that's okay,
Sure.
Just to respond to Councilmember Ding. In addition to the 10,000 of general fund, which is really focused on sidewalks adjacent to city-owned property that the city is directly responsible for, there's a $50,000 budget request of gas tax to fund the ongoing sidewalk trip hazard repair program, where we have a contractor come in. They're continuing with the phases. Like you said, we'll finish up phase 10, get through phase 11, maybe a little bit restarting phase 1 from way back, and inspect the sidewalks where the rise is small. They will repair. Where the rise is too big for them to repair by saw cutting, and we put the property owner on notice to conduct repairs there. And I'd be happy to meet and talk about the details with you. But we do have 50,000 in the budget to work on that, continue to work on it of gas tax dollars.
Do we have any specific policy? Whose responsibility? Because neighborhoods confusing. They said, well, that is the cities. But my understanding is some of the sidewalk in the front of that house should be taken care of by the homeowner or the HOA. I'm not sure. So that we need a policy, we need a guidance. You know, anytime there will have some incident. So far, it's okay. We are lucky. We never got any report.
Good point. Let's talk about that separate from the budget item.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Jack, I just sent you a text on the information.
Okay.
So just to wrap that up, Colleen will, Colleen, I think it maybe make a good idea we'll do a little summary for budget adoption on the 7th that talks a little bit more about what our sidewalk program is and then the responsibility of the property owner. Because I think you're right, the sidewalks need a lot of work, but a lot of the work needs to be done by the property owners. And that's always kind of a challenging thing to tell people, that they have to plow that much more investment into preparing that walkway. But that's the way the code's set up in Sonoma.
If I could just make a comment here. I really appreciate all the comments that have been made by a former council member, or all of our council members, apologize. And especially the ones just kind of on being able to see a CIP. I would love to see what has been put on pause, and kind of have it a holistic council discussion on what we should start hitting the go button as the picture starts looking a little better, or if it does. And the one thing I would also say is on the city sidewalk inspection and repair program, there are sections of the city that have been neglected, that will never be added with sidewalk because there's going to be no neighbors there. And specifically, I'm talking about along West Spain Street. There's a section basically between the General's Daughter and 5th Street West. Actually, I think it's a little bit past the General's Daughter, but it's all fronted by blackberry bushes. And it's just a field there. There needs to be a sidewalk for completion because a lot of people are forced to cross the street or walk on the road. And it's a lot of kids and families that are walking to St. Francis out of the West Side neighborhood. And so I just would love to see that targeted in the future. I may not be here when that gets added to CIP, but just to put a bug in the ear of our planning director about that, our public works director, I apologize. I think it's a really critical piece of infrastructure that is it just completes that last little bit of sidewalk. So I'd love to see that discussed. And that's it. I also think that red is a very, very interesting choice, theme choice for a budget presentation.
I have a question about this slide. About Broadway pedestrian safety. Obviously, we've recently discussed that. Colleen, is this a budget estimate for the hawk signals at Patton and at France?
What's included in this estimate is something along the line of a rectangular rapid flashing beacon with potential pedestrian refuges on each side of Broadway, depending on how we want Broadway configured and what Caltrans will allow in the future. But rapid flashing beacons could be put on both sides of Broadway, at France Andrix, at Patton, at Malay. And it also includes moving the crosswalk at Clay Street from the south end of Traintown to the north end of Traintown, where one could cross from a sidewalk to a sidewalk. And potential relocation of the bus stop at the south end of Traintown to that existing sidewalk as well.
And so this estimate includes all of that?
Yes.
And is there any precedent for us spending money on a state highway like this before?
The in-ground lights that you see at Patton and at France Andrix, as well as at 3rd Street West, were all installed and have been maintained by the city.
Okay, thank you.
But Councilmember Barnett, you raise a good point. I mean, arguably, we should be working with Senator Dodd's office and Assemblymember Levine's office, because these are things that arguably certainly should be within Caltrans' pocketbook and not ours.
Yeah, all I would say is obviously pedestrian safety on Broadway is paramount. And so I support improving that. I just, I've recently read articles that California is awash with tax revenue and we are not. And so this is a state highway, and I do think that they should be paying for it. And so to the city manager's point, I would like to continue to work with our state representatives on this before we commit these funds.
Yeah, I'll definitely pursue that.
Possibly we could go on a cruise with Mark and Bill. And don't return them home until we get an answer.
All right, I'm almost done here. And then we'll take broader questions if that's okay. So as I'm mentioning, I do think I need to put a little bit more money in here for some of the studies that we talked about. Some of our IT needs are not entirely resolved by this budget. And then later in your agenda, you're talking about a fire impact fee, which doesn't help a lot, but it helps a little with new development. And then Mayor Harvey and Vice Mayor Agrimonti were on a call today where we talked about upping some of our affordable housing observation and monitoring and regulation, as well as housing navigation to help us find rapid rehousing locations, which could be the biggest part of our homelessness problem. And then we need to make sure we address our SB 1383 ramp up. So I just wanted to warn you that the fine tuning on this one is not quite done, but it certainly will be by June 7th. And then what I'll do is make sure that that I'll delineate what those changes are. So we appreciate your questions already and the ones coming up in the next few minutes. We're in a dynamic situation relating to reopening. Revenues may come in better even we may even know more in 3 weeks. We'll clearly call out any changes and discuss these with you in the June 7th presentation. And again, just wrapping up, our goal is to provide you with as much financial information and transparency as we can. We'll continue to adapt as we move forward. This is still a fairly conservative budget with a fairly conservative approach to the resources that you have. And then I'm thankful for the staff that developed this. They worked hard. This wasn't an easy year to develop a budget. And I think overall you're well positioned in Sonoma. We're well positioned in Sonoma to move forward successfully, as the long-term financial impact analysis says. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and welcome other questions. I can reshare if you'd like.
I just have a quick question, perhaps for my benefit. I was not on the council at this time. I noticed in the packet that, I mean, obviously we've been deficit spending since the pandemic has struck, but I noticed in 2018, 2019, the actual budget, we also ran, I think, a $300,000 deficit. And I was curious what the reason for that was.
Sue, do you feel comfortable with that one?
Well, for 18, 19, 19, 20, we were still finishing up our their audits, and there was we were consolidating funds. There were some funds that were had a deficit balance in them, and as they came over to the general fund, they caused a write-off in the general fund. So that's what happened in 18.
The actuals, okay.
Yeah. So, but we're done with that now. So.
Okay.
Like the cemetery.
So the cemetery has not been consolidated. Again, that's what we have, the money in there for the fiscal analysis this year. And that will be one of the things that we concentrate on is really delving into the cemetery fund. That's the one fund we haven't looked at yet. So.
And then another question I just briefly had, and first of all, thank you very much for that answer. I know historically we always have never really run a deficit before. And so I was just curious why we did that year. But my other question is about the one-time donation to, I believe it was the Redwood Empire Food Bank. And I was just curious how that got into the budget. I know that we've been receiving a lot of emails from nonprofits knowing that we're getting $2 million from the Federal CARES Act asking for support. And I was under the impression that we were, I mean, clearly during the pandemic, the food bank has been very important even here in the Sonoma Valley, but I was curious why that's in the budget. Typically when we fund nonprofits, they're Sonoma Valley based nonprofits. And while the Redwood Empire Food Bank does work here, they're not based here. It's sort of without precedent, I think. And I was just curious what the thinking on that was.
Sure, I can jump in and explain some of that. I had gotten contacted and had a call with Dave from the Redwood Empire Food Bank and had worked closely with them throughout the pandemic. They fed hundreds of families throughout the pandemic. And they really are Sonoma Valley's food bank. They do it every single day. They're here multiple times a day providing food for our families. Everything that you see from Comida para Todos and everything else was from Redwood Empire Food Bank. And so I had passed along the message that they were asking cities to contribute funding because they've been redlining it basically the past year. And it did get included. I don't know if that's an appropriate process or whatever, but they are definitely Sonoma County's food bank. I've worked those lines myself with 400 or 500 cars lined up, looking for free food through the pandemic. They were here during fires and every other piece of it. So they're truly Sonoma County's food bank, and a lot of our services wouldn't work without their support. So.
Okay, well, I mean, that answers the question. I was just curious how it got in there. I mean, clearly I would like to talk about that. I mean, I think as a one-time donation, obviously during the pandemic, I'm obviously open to that, but I wouldn't want to set a precedent where, I mean, again, we are getting many emails from nonprofits throughout the county asking for donations from this CARES Act. And I just worry if we give it to the Redwood Empire Food Bank, we'll hear from other, we just need to talk about that. And I also know that we have local Valley organizations and nonprofits that also provide similar services. And so, but obviously I understand the need, there's a huge need there, but I was just curious how that ended up there.
Sure. And if council doesn't support it, then it won't be in there. So.
I also, just my last question before we move on, I noticed that some of the funding for capital improvement program comes from the Measure M park funding. And I was under the impression we created, and this was before I was on the council, a Parks and Rec committee. I know Councilwoman Harrington was very involved in this, that we had stakeholders in our community that was going to make recommendations on how to spend the Measure M park funding. And it seems like we're using part of that before we've received recommendations. And I'm just curious, was that how the process was supposed to work, or?
I can speak to that. The group did meet. They made recommendations that came through the Community Services and Environment Commission, who's our Parks Advising Commission, and they supported staff's recommendations to do some upgrades at Depot Park, specifically at the restroom area, including upgrading the restrooms, painting, new signage, bike parking, water bottle filling station, bioretention so that the runoff gets treated and filters and helps support the groundwater supply, some improved signage. So a nice package of improvements there at Depot Park. And that was recommended by CSCC to be put in the budget for Depot Park improvements. And that is a separate project for Measure M Parks funding in the budget. And there's additional Measure M Parks funding in the parks, the Measure M Parks fund, waiting for more recommendations from this group.
Did that stakeholder group recommend the Depot Park funding?
Yes.
We're involved in that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is a question for Rebecca, but also for all of us. In the event that we have, I guess the recall election for Governor Newsom is going to go forward, who pays for that election?
That's a good question. That's something that the RV hasn't sent any direction out to us. Since that would be, I would assume that it would come from the county, when like you have a county-wide measure.
Mm-hmm.
It typically, we don't pay because it's not our election, but that would be something that I would have to talk with the ROV about, Councilmember Harrington. And I can definitely send her an email and ask that question.
Okay, I was just thinking too, in terms of funding in the, I guess it's in the city clerk's office, in the event that we elect to do an election to replace our beloved mayor, we would need funding for that. And I don't know if that can be done at the same time as the Newsom recall election, which would be a real weird election for somebody to participate in, but it could be that it turned out that way. But I just want to make sure that whatever it is, we have a line item for a possible election if that is necessary. And I think we talked before that it was something like 40 grand, but you might want to consider putting in a placeholder for that.
So council members and Mr. Mayor, if you had any further things that you wanted us to delve deeply into, more deeply into between now and June 7th, I would sure appreciate knowing that. And then we can give you a good solid product on June 7th. Among other things, it sounds like we'll do a more thorough recap of the various CIP programs, not just general fund, just so you can see that and know what that is. Anything else you'd like to see more about?
Is the plan to approve the budget on June 7th?
That would be the hoped for plan. You would have one other meeting to approve it. You just have to approve it by July 1st.
I seem to remember historically that there was like a budget workshop meeting that was just held with, it was just about the budget. Is that not planned this year?
That was kind of what today was for. we're trying to be respectful of everybody's time. And you guys have a lot going on.
That was kind of a hellish meeting previously. It was like 4 hours into the first two presentations. You were like, wow.
From my own experience, I'm not a big fan of the big dog and pony shows where everybody presents what's in their individual department budget. I think it kind of drives you guys crazy. So that's why I was defaulting to this, but certainly welcome anything further you'd like to see.
So I really appreciated, it was, very comprehensive. The only thing is I did not have access to this information. So if that could be printed and put in my mailbox, I can drop by and pick it up.
Great.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. In previous years, we got binders, which maybe that's a stupid request, but it's actually kind of helpful to get a binder with the stuff in it. So if we could get that, I would like that.
You mean a real budget binder?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, super helpful for making notes and marking
Oh,
notes.
absolutely. Yeah, no, we're doing that this year. So that's
Okay.
what we're working on. And Mayor Harvey, the previous one was in red. I was using the same colors, but we'll use blue this time or something more cheerful.
Green or black?
Green or black, okay.
Wow.
It's very ominous in, a year full of financial
Red one.
disruption. Yeah, red is usually.
If you don't have any other question, I want to ask, have we received the CARES Act money in full or just only in a half?
No, we received the full amount. It's about 135,000.
That is 2.08 or?
Oh, no, CARES Act was different. That was the 135,000. The federal funding is, it was supposed to be 60 days from when they approved
Yes.
it, but we're not a CDBG city, so it could be another 60 days. So we're putting it all in 21, 22. So
Okay.
because it was supposed to come in two
Important. Yeah,
installments.
once you receive that money, please send me an email. Let me know because I'm really concerned. Number one, number two. From the budget, I didn't see, but I don't know how to explain from that budget because during the pandemic, and we were using the funds from the affordable housing trust fund money for the rental assistance. So I really want to see this time after we receive the federal fund, and then we should reinstall, go back to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Because I treat this as a borrowing for a temporary emergency, as not just the use this because we do have the long-term strategy for on the local affordable housing. I don't want to see, and we are losing some of the money from this fund because we just set up a couple of years, and suddenly right now we don't have any balance over there, right?
I think that's a great idea. Personally, I would support that with the CARES Act funding to put that to replenish.
Yeah, there is
I had to spend that money at that time, but since we're getting this money back from the federal government in response, I think replenishing that fund makes sense. It's a great project.
We'll certainly do that, and we'll show you on June 7th kind of what we're replenishing, because there is a significant amount that's going in to replenish that various reserves. So we'll make sure one of them is that fund. That sound reasonable, Sue? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other guidance for us? I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? I'm seeing none. Do we have to go to public comment, or are we on a presentation item?
Public comment.
Go ahead and open up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, we'll bring it back to the council. Looking for item 5.4, discussion, consider asking staff to return. I apologize, I'm getting some updates here. Discuss, consider asking staff to return with council documents to support Prop 2218 compliant process to enact fire impact fees requiring new residential and commercial development to pay these fees. Go ahead to the city manager, David Kiff. We're always going back to you. I don't even know why I say it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the Dave Kiff night. I'll make this one fairly brief, and I'll just show you just some items from the staff report, but just know it falls under this umbrella. And that is that all around us in the Sonoma Valley Fire District, there is now a impact fee associated just with new development. So if you're doing new residential, new multifamily residential, new commercial, or new industrial, and we don't have industrial in Sonoma, that you now pay an impact fee associated with the consequence to that new development's fire impacts. You know, does it cause a new engine to be purchased, or new ambulance to be purchased, or new defibrillators, or other things? So I'll show you what this fee looks like. I'll do a quick share screen. This is not going to take nearly as long as our other ones. And basically the fee looks like this. You can see the amount per square foot, and then we did a projection of what it looks like for a typical home, and that's on this slide here. And what I did was I conferred with David Storr to talk about what we would assume would come in brand new into the city. And you figure maybe 40 new residences of various sizes, 12 ADUs, and a new office and new retail. So, and basically here are the fees that would be associated with each one of those, and the amount of revenue that would come in arguably in a typical year when you did have that kind of quantity coming in. And again, ADUs are exempted. There are provisions that would allow us to exempt or reduce the fee on low income housing, on affordable housing. But generally this is specifically new development, and it pays directly for new equipment. It can't pay for older equipment. And again, this is now consistent in all parts of this Sonoma Valley Fire District except the city of Sonoma. So the question for you tonight is, do you want me to bring this back and actually with consideration of approving it? And do you have any more questions about it? And with that, I'll stop sharing screen and note that Chief Aker is with us if you had questions about how this is working in the rest of the district.
Great. Yeah, so I'd like to make a couple comments here. I think that there's a lot of stuff that happens around housing where, you know, you look at the individual price of each individual piece of it, and individually it seems totally reasonable and something that will not affect housing production. You think about double pane windows, and then you think about GFCI requirements for your switches and your fuse box, and then you think about our requirement depending on, you know, the new housing, you have to have fire sprinklers in it, and individually they all aren't going to break the bank, but I think together they start to get to that really high degree of difficulty and start driving the cost of housing up. And one of the things I'd say with this is I think, you know, we've had some discussions as part of the planning ad hoc of encouraging smaller housing development. So I think that if we are going to go through with this, I would love to exempt any affordable housing from this, absolutely. And I also think that one of the things we should consider too is exempting housing or new apartment buildings or houses that are under 1,000 square feet or 1,200 square feet from these.
Yeah. I think it's in there. Is that right? I'm not sure.
It says we can't do it, but it doesn't say that we are.
What do you mean by affordable housing? Like 100% affordable, or like if it's the 2 units of a 6 unit, or what do you mean?
Anything that's deed restricted affordable.
So like if you had a project that was a portion affordable and a portion not, then what would it be?
The affordable units would not be subject to these restrictions to this tax. But the
affordable, so when you looked at how much was built, the square footage of the affordable units would be excluded from the calculation?
Yeah. And additionally, I would say if you build market rate units of under 1,000 square feet, then those would also be not counted.
What about just charging them a lower rate?
We could also do that.
I mean, I think, I guess we're going to take public comment on it. I can say my comment after.
We want to open up, nobody else has comments? All right, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Being none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council.
So I guess my comment is, if this is uniform in the rest of Sonoma County, I don't think that it makes sense to have a different ordinance just in the town of Sonoma. I can appreciate why we would want to give exemptions, but I think that the price that we're talking about is not going to be determined. I understand the cumulative effect on building, but it's also like the price of wood went up by 400%. And so I don't know that we're going to see more affordable housing in the town of Sonoma because we haven't adopted what is now a uniform fee everywhere around us. And so I think that to the extent that we have, if it would be better for people if they knew in Sonoma County we had more regular uniform fees, that would be easier for people than trying to figure out little fiefdoms here and there. So, and I don't think that this fee would disincentivize people from building the units they need to build. So I would just adopt it as is.
I agree with Councilwoman Harrington. I mean, I totally agree with what the mayor said. I mean, all these fees are why housing is so expensive, but we also have to sort of pay to protect our valley from fires, and someone needs to pay for it. And as everyone knows, I've been a long believer that whatever policies we have in the city should also be in the valley. And if the valley, the fire district throughout the valley has already adopted this, I think we should probably adopt it. It should be the same. And so I think Councilwoman Harrington made a good point there.
Oh, other comment?
Yeah, I agree with
It's
Amy.
good points. Yeah, very good points.
Fair enough. So go ahead and bring this back, I guess, next meeting, or?
It wouldn't come back quite that soon, but we will tee it up to be brought back here this summer.
Okay, sounds good.
I think that concludes all of my items. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
None of the rest of them.
Now on to item 6.1. Discuss, consider, and take possible action regarding the introduction of an ordinance amending the Sonoma Municipal Code, affordable housing density bonuses to modify affordable housing requirements, and finding the proposed amendments are not subject to CEQA. We should go to David Storr on this one, huh?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Christina Tierney. Rebecca, could you promote her by chance, please? And I'll be available for questions and answers after Christina's presentation.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
For some reason, my computer in the office is super quiet, so it sounds like everybody is silent. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. David and I and the rest of our staff have all been working hard on this ordinance for the past couple months, including our ad hoc committee. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Yes?
Yes, we can see that, Christina. It's showing 2 slides, I think. This shows the next slide as well.
Say that again?
They were showing 2 slides as opposed to just the one.
Showing 2 slides as well.
That's okay. That can work.
Yep.
Yeah, I just roll with it.
How about that?
Perfect.
Yes.
All right. Now I have to figure out, did that change it?
Yes.
Yay, okay. So first of all, just wanted to do a quick summary of what we've accomplished so far with the zoning code updates. We are now on our 3rd round. The first round went into effect on February 10th. Our second round went into effect on April 1st, and that entailed the modifications to the planning area standards, address the site coverage issue. And the next round is really exciting. I think I speak for everyone on the ad hoc and the commissioners as well, that we're excited to be before you tonight to discuss modifications to our affordable housing ordinance. Through the pandemic, it has just really highlighted the importance of having affordable housing in the city of Sonoma. And our goals tonight are, and the goal of this entire chapter is to ensure the production of affordable units in new development by establishing criteria and requirements for residential projects. And the goals with these modifications to the code were to improve clarity of the standards, to have one standard for all of our zoning districts, and similar to the discussion on the fire impact fees, just, you know, we have a 2 mile by 2 mile city, and trying to make it as easy as possible for everyone to understand what the requirements are, better align with the city's RENA goals.
Christine, I want to go to the next slide.
Low income housing. There's a large percentage of our RENA goals that are for very low and low, but currently our code only requires low and moderate income housing.
Hey, Christina, can you hear me?
Yes.
The slides are not moving forward. You're stuck on the first one, the zoning code update one.
Oh, thanks, David. Not on my screen. So does it still say zoning code update? There.
Yes, there we go.
I've been working from home too long. It feels weird when I'm in the office.
Oh, no.
So we will also be introducing requirements for units of 4 units or fewer. This is a new change. Currently, all of our affordable housing requirements are for developments of 5 units or more. And a large component of that is requirements for an in-lieu fee. So for units of developments of 4 units or less, there would be an in-lieu fee, and also for fractional units. And also a goal of improving clarity on development standards. I'm gonna skip, this is just to tell you, we've been working really hard for a long time. We have looked at lots of other jurisdictions and what they're doing, many meetings and discussions with our ad hoc committee. We had a draft that went through the ad hoc, revised draft that went through the ad hoc, one draft of this ordinance that went through the Planning Commission on April 8th. And the feedback that we got from the Planning Commission was to provide additional data to support the recommendations. The Planning Commission preferred to have one uniform standard for rental and ownership units. So that modification is in this round as well. And we went back to Planning Commission on April 22nd, and it was unanimously recommended that the ordinance that is before you tonight be brought to City Council. So the recommendations that are up for discussion tonight are to increase our required affordable housing from 20% to 25%, to formalize our affordability requirements. And what that means is to be very specific about what percentage of very low, low, and moderate income housing need to be provided. We're also introducing requirements for middle income households and formalizing the development standards, as I mentioned, introducing the in lieu fees, and also modifying the term from 55 years to in perpetuity. So once an affordable housing unit has been designated, the modification would mean that it's not going to go away after a set point in time. Currently, we have some units that are going to expire in the next few years, and this would help ensure that affordable housing supply in perpetuity. This is the summary of the recommended breakdown. So for rental units, the recommendation is for 5% very low, 10% low, 5% moderate, and 5% middle. For sale units, the breakdown is 10% low, 10% moderate, and 5% middle. The goal of formalizing the development standards is to comply with state law with regards to objective and subjective standards. And it would require that the units be constructed at the same time, integrated into the development, and be of a similar size as the market rate units. And on the screen right now are the recommended fees for the in lieu fee, which is not being adopted tonight. And David, I'll let you correct me if that's wrong. That's going to come back, correct?
Yes, that'll be coming back on June the 7th.
Thank you. So at this point, that concludes staff's presentation, and I open it up to questions and feedback.
Great. If we could go ahead, Kelso.
And this question might be for David or perhaps Jeff. We received a letter from Legal Aid of Sonoma County and Generation Housing. And before I read what it said, during the ad hoc process, we were told that the state doesn't allow us to, in our inclusionary ordinance, provide for over 15% for low and very low AMI. And they say that there's some confusion over AB 1505 and that we are allowed to do over 15%. And I was just curious what the answer to that was.
Yeah, I can address that without going into more detail than you really want, I think. There was a problem back a few years where there was a question as to whether you could have require rental unit, affordable housing units. Mm-hmm. And there was what's called the Palmer fix that kind of cured that issue there. But at the end of the day, HCD can require a market feasibility study to show that if you are choosing to go above 50%, that you're not indeed negatively impacting the ability to provide housing. So it has been done, it can be done, but it just requires an additional layer of involvement with HCD. And so it's always best, if you can, to not have to go into that extra process. So there's no confusion there. We're aware of what the issue.
So we can't do that right now because we don't have that study.
That'd be correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, that is a compliance with the 15% by the state and then the code, right?
Yes, the way that we've presently constructed it, we would not have to do that additional study under AB 1505.
All right, thank you.
Dave, can you repeat what does the 15% limit apply to?
Well, if you go for what you can't have more than 50% moderate or 15% low or 15% very low income. When you go above those in any one of those 4 or 5 categories, then you run into that question of doing the additional study.
Okay. Can you put up the percentages in terms of rental and for sale again?
As far as what we're proposing tonight?
Thank you.
Yeah, there was a thought at the commission and the ad hoc, I think, that the bandwidth, if you will, is likely to be more successful if you don't put a VLI into the for sale units requirement. So you'll see that everything is pretty much the same there, except for the 5% very low got blended into the moderate for the for sales. So that's where the basic change occurred.
So the very low. So what did you say about for sale? We have to have a LI category?
No.
Yeah.
Christina got lost again.
Yeah, and my internet connection, sorry.
What we did is we took out the VLI category, Mr. Mayor, and then added the 5% that we took out of the rental VLI and put it into the for sale moderate. You see how between the rental and the for sale, the moderate went from 5% to 10%. It was picked up because of the emission or the removal of the 5% on the very low on the rental.
Okay. Yeah, I had hoped that on the for sale side we could expand this middle income piece. I'd be willing to go an additional 5% and bring that up to 30. What I think middle income does, because it goes up to 160% AMI, is it provides an opportunity for middle class families to buy without really harming the developer's ability to build the housing, because it's very close to market rate in terms of the sale price. But it prevents the housing from going to a second homeowner. It forces it to be for somebody, a middle class worker or a cop, firefighter type of income, and allows them to compete without competing against super high net worth individuals. I think that's a really critical piece of our market that's missing often. I don't know how much it's needed in the rental piece. But I think on the for sale, I'd like to see it as much as 15%. I think it's a really critical piece. And I think that because it's not going to damage the ability for, or it's unlikely to damage the ability for developers to build the housing, it's not as much of a burden for them, that we can go a little bit higher with that. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks, but that's kind of my
Yeah,
thought. Have a thought there?
One option you could do there, Mr. Mayor, is take 5 on the for sale, take 5 out of the low and the moderate and add that to the middle. Then you still would not be running afoul, or not running afoul, would not have the implication of 1505.
To piggy off what the mayor said, I would, and I have more comments about this later, maybe after public comment, but I would support removing low from the for sale, because I don't know data that gets complicated for sale, and I would support bumping up the moderate category on the for sale to 15 and the above moderate to 15, so 30% for sale. And then for rent on this slide here, I don't understand why we have moderate or above moderate on rent, because above moderate on rent might actually, I was always under the impression moderate is basically very close to market rate for the rental market. And so, I certainly don't think we need above moderate for rental, and moderate I don't think is necessary either. And so I would, for now, keep it at 15% with 5% very low and 10% low. And then I would also be open to some sort of economic study that, and obviously we can't do it tonight, but that might be able to increase those numbers for rent. That's just my personal thoughts.
I mean, my only comment, which is perhaps for a different time, is I've talked to people about trying to rent the units that are available, and they've said they've had incredible difficulty getting the forms from the city, that there isn't an inventory available of what's available, and that the property owners are sometimes administering these programs themselves, and so there isn't really transparency in who can even get the units that do exist. So at a later date, I'd like to talk about what our process is for, and I know you guys have been working on this, but what is our process for creating a place where people can go and find out what units are available and how we can make sure there's a fair process for people getting those units.
Yeah, I agree. We've also started hearing things that the developers will start passing the information about moderate and middle income listings to their family and friends.
Right. I had heard the same thing.
Not even from Sonoma, right?
Yeah.
Well, and as of course they are allowed to do, since they are, I mean, that's allowable, right? As long as they qualify.
As long as they qualify.
But yeah, so I think that's something that, it's like, we got to make sure that we're creating it, and then also that it's administered fairly so that people have a chance at getting it.
So this is Madeline. I agree with the sale of going up to 15%. And was the moderate, did you say 10 on rental?
For moderate, so it's for rental, it's 5% very low, 10% low, 5 moderate, and 5 middle. For sale, it's 10% low, 10% moderate, and 5% middle.
Right.
And if I could just go back a second and touch on Councilmember Barnett's comment about the low income, I just would like to remind everyone of that one of our goals with this process is to assist the city with meeting our RENA numbers. So we don't have RENA requirements for moderate and for middle. We have RENA requirements that are going to be a challenge for very low and low. And so that was really one of our primary goals with making these modifications as well.
I understand that, but we also don't want to stop the development of housing, and a low band, AMI band for sale is a significant difference from market price. And that might create it might create a climate where some of these projects are not going to pencil. And so I would like a little more data on that, perhaps. And I don't think we're going to have that tonight.
Yeah, just one thing to remember, folks, and that is right now as we speak, before we make any changes, our requirement is the same for rental as it is for sale. And a developer can pick whether they go with low income or moderate income to get their 20%. So what we are doing, in fact, is giving the market more choices. We're giving a difference. So the question is, what mechanism do you want to work with for rent or for sale to help produce the units? And so whatever incentives as policy you create, we're doing a lot better job. Yes, we're increasing by 5%, but we're also giving more flexibility to the builders to determine what it is that they want to produce.
Yeah, right now our requirement's 20%, and our implementation of this has been a little bit wishy-washy. So in some cases it's been 50% low, 50% moderate, which is the same as 10% low, 10% moderate. So for the for sale units, there's no the only real change compared to baseline conditions is that we're adding a requirement for 5% middle. I think the economy in town is pretty strong. The developers don't seem to be running away. So I would be hesitant to take away the low.
If Christina, if let's say a house, market, let's use Mockingbird, for example, right? Those on the market are going for $1.2 million currently. What would a low Mockingbird AMI house sell for? Do we know the answer to that?
It'll be 80% of that amount.
That's the point, meaning I bet it's like 400,000, right? And so that's an $800,000 per year. I mean, that's a lot. And so I just worry that might stifle some development. And so that's why, at least for the for sale bands, I prefer more moderate and sort of above moderate opportunities. And that for the rental, I think we should focus more on very low and low. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the planning commission did discuss that very thing, but they didn't want to get too far from center. And that's why they expanded it just ever so slightly higher to include the 5% middle. Sorry, Councilmember Harrington, I think I cut you off.
That's fine. Maybe I cut you off. Sorry. When we had our housing series, we had a developer there. What they said, I think they said this at that time, was that basically a lot of the housing that gets developed at the higher end is going to be vacation homes. That's the truth, and second homes, and that those people are going to pay for units that people who actually live here can afford. And so under that scheme, it is expensive, but it's probably too expensive for most people to afford here in any event. And so we want to make sure that those people who are pricing other people out of the market are helping other people to get into the market. So I think, if those Mockingbird houses were $1.3 million, they would probably sell just as fast as at 1.2.
Yep. As to this number, for me, I don't have any, negative on this kind of numbers. Besides this number, and also we have the other thing we need to consider. Yeah, so I do have a real example. Yeah, I can tell the people. And the developer and also doesn't mind tell them his name, but I don't want to mention his name. He has a broad project. He bought a piece of the land in the Broadway, and he applying for the 6 units, but he is ready and happy to donate 2 of them as affordable housing. So that is his original, plan. But later on, he couldn't get the flu. So basically, why I mention about this is, the numbers, the 20% and the 15%, even the 30% is not the very important. Important thing is how on the local government work with the developer, how to get the flu. And we can see really these kind of 6 units and will be built up in the city. That is important. So but anyway, I don't think that is relevant. I just because right now we are try to make in a policy. I'm okay. Yeah, and that 25%.
And just to note, one of the discussions that we had at the Planning Commission level was also about what our approach is to the whole housing scenario in the city of Sonoma. I'm just going to skip to a different slide, but this is really step one of a multi-phase process. So we, as you are aware, we are kicking off our housing element very shortly. And the goal with the housing element process is that we're going to get a lot more information about this. So the goal short term is to really make some changes, meaningful changes in the short term. And that will be informed later on by additional data. So the plan is to come back and look at this again. So the short-term goals, can you guys see the overview of approach?
Yeah.
Okay, so to really improve our existing ordinance for clarity and consistency, and to better align the ordinance with our RENA goals. And then when we kick off our housing element approach, we're going to be collecting data. We're going to be doing the housing needs assessment. That's a required part of the housing element process. And we'll be looking at housing characteristics and needs, special needs groups, all of that. We're going to be getting a lot of information in the next couple of years. And then that will be another time to really come back and look at what we've selected and can reevaluate what our numbers are and what our ordinance looks like. So right now we're trying to, right now we're at 20%, 50 low, 50 moderate, and we're trying to make little tweaks to acknowledge the fact that the rental market likely needs more very low and extremely low income requirements for that portion of the population that lives in our community, and that the ownership makeup might be slightly different, but trying to keep it at least where we are at 20%, and in attempting to go up a little bit higher to address that middle income category.
Go ahead, Council.
So as of the Sonoma County affordable purchase price, a 3-bedroom house at 60% of median income is $302,000. And so 60% I think would be low. And so obviously that's an affordable price, but it costs probably $600,000 to $700,000 to build the house. And so we're asking these developers to take a $400,000 loss on every low, where, for middle income and even moderate, it's up to 600,000, possibly even higher. And so at least they would break even. And so to Councilwoman Harrington's point, that will bump up the price for all the for market price homes, which will just exacerbate inequality and gentrification. These are very complicated issues, by the way. So I'm not saying there's going to be a silver bullet here, but I just wouldn't want to stifle development. And it's a little easier for developers to absorb it on their for rent because it's sort of a cash flow issue, and it's not as it's less obviously, but we're asking a developer to basically, swallow, probably $300,000 to $400,000 for each low affordable unit, and they're going to have to make that up elsewhere, which will just make the remaining homes that much more expensive, or may not even get built at all, with, as I think on a previous item, Councilwoman Harrington discussed the price of lumber these days. So we just, obviously this is very difficult, and we have to sort of find a way that encourages development and also encourages these opportunities, but doesn't also stifle development, because then there will be no opportunities for anybody if nothing gets built. So.
Yeah, and that's why I think that increasing the middle income is less harmful, right? And so I would rather for sale that kind of shifted up, and so we'd go higher in number of units that you would take, which kind of makes it a wash, hopefully, between the rental and the for sale, but also higher in income in terms of amount. And I think it's about creating opportunities for people who are, mid-level managers or cops or things like that to be able to buy homes in this area without competing at that $1 million plus price point.
There a proposal here? What's the proposal?
The recommendation from staff, again, so the current ordinance is 10% low, 10% moderate. And I just put the recommendations back on the screen for help.
And Christina, this is also from the Planning Commission as well, correct?
Correct.
Well, what did Logan suggest? This?
I I'd like to see, I would see low brought down, and I would see middle go up to 15%.
15% middle and what low?
5% low, 10% mod.
For sale, right?
For sale.
Yeah.
And what about rental?
I'd be fine with getting rid of, I don't know. I don't have a separate proposal for rental.
My proposal for rental would be to get rid of the moderate and middle and just have very low and low. And
That's
for
fine.
sale, I think we should get rid of low and just have moderate and middle.
Yeah,
You want to get rid of very low, for rental, very low and low would stay at 5 and 10 and then get rid of this other 10%, or you would add that to the low and very low.
Can I make a suggestion?
We can't get rid of we can't go above 15% without doing a study. And so I would say 5% very low, 10% low. And then from what I understand, moderate is very close to market anyway. So I don't think we need to be mandating moderate when it's market anyway.
One other option would be to do 12.5 on the rental, do 12.5 very low, 12.5 low to get to your 25%. Because if you think about it, if you just had 5% very low and 10% low, you actually reduced your requirement for rental from 20% down to 50.
I thought we couldn't go over 15%.
You can't. You risk having to prepare a study for 15% of very low and low when you had the two in your rental category.
Right. I mean, I'm open to doing that after we do the study that Jeff discussed, but right now we can't go over 15%. I thought.
I think we can actually make those changes, and then we would submit our analysis to HCD for them to determine whether we've gone out of bounds to harm the ability to produce the housing. So it's an after the fact study, and they're done all the time. I can confer with Jeff here in just a minute about that. But my reading of 1505 allows us to make that, but we have to have a study to present to HCD.
I would be fine with doing 12.5% of each of those if it's possible.
I agree, if it's possible. Yeah.
Okay. And then on the sale one,
15 and 15.
15 low and 15 moderate.
15 moderate, 15 middle.
Oh, sorry, 15 moderate, 15 middle.
No low.
No low. Sorry, can you tell me again why you think there should be no low?
I just think it's going to stifle for sale development because you're asking a developer to take, on average, perhaps a $500,000 loss per per unit. I mean, it's going to cost a lot more to build the unit that they're going to be able to sell it for.
But to clarify, that's that's the requirement that's been on the books since 2003.
Well, what is the requirement in the county?
They can choose moderate.
That's not how we've been implementing. It's been low or moderate, and I can pull up the RENA numbers or our existing inventory if you want. And it's pretty evenly split. So over time, since this ordinance was put into effect, it's been largely split between low and moderate.
But haven't all the recent for sale projects, you've allowed the affordable units to be rentals?
No, that's not true.
Well, Mockingbird was, right?
That's one instance.
And those were both 120%.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. There's too low, too moderate.
Rental.
Yes.
Yeah. I believe I understand Councilmember Barnett, meeting. Yeah. When we have the policy, we should look at the real world. In this real world, it's hard to find
But I guess the question is, like, in other places, don't they have the same ordinance and housing is still built? So it's like, and when we had developers come in and talk to us, nobody said that this was a hindrance. It's like, yeah, it costs a lot of money to develop luxury real estate, and this is the cost, and that has to be factored into your profits, which are enormous. And, we never received information from any developer that the thing that was holding them back was having to do low income for sale.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any comments from any developers on the proposal that's in the ordinance tonight. And so I'm going to share my screen and just pull up our existing inventory for the city of Sonoma.
And also, like, to meet our arena numbers, we have to get these units like on the books. How are we going to do that?
I don't know if we mentioned it. I thought we had, but we've actually met our arena numbers for the cycle that we're currently in.
But our new ones, yeah.
Yeah, the new ones are the problem.
Right. But don't we need people to be saying they're going to build affordable housing to meet those numbers?
The way
Yes.
that we largely met our RENA numbers, so our ordinance, as I mentioned, it's providing about half low, half moderate. But our RENA numbers, when you break it out, there's a large percentage that's required for the very low. So I did a little breakdown. So in 2018, for our annual progress report, we had 0 very low income units, 67 low income units, and 71 moderate. So the breakdown there is about 46 to 49%. So slightly more moderate units than low income units. We jump up to 2020. This is where some of the Alta Madrona units start coming in. So here we have 24 very low, and now that jumps up to 12%, 95 low income units, which is 48%, and then 73 moderate income units. So our RENA numbers for this cycle is 44% very low, 52% low, and 4% moderate.
My question is inventory. Inventory, that means, it's not for the transaction, right? It's ready for transaction. What is really the transaction, number? Do you have any?
On the actual for sale prices?
Yes. If the
I don't personally have that information. That is, I have not been involved in that. Maybe Jeff or Director Storer can comment on that.
Don't have that information.
All I can say is we're really busy here in the planning department, and I haven't had anybody tell me that the price of affordable housing units has been a reason they're going away.
When's the last time a developer built a for sale low AMI income unit? Because I don't think I think it's been a very long time. I can't remember that.
I would have to look into it. I mean, our developments around here, it's such a long process. I've been here 3 years. So the Mockingbird, that was one of my first projects, and they're just getting built now.
And most of the other developments we've had recently have been rentals, right?
Oliva was rentals. That it takes so long. The Oliva apartments, those were approved in 2018, 2016. Right. So I can't give you numbers off the top of my head. One of the things that we run into a lot too is we rarely have large developments. It's 4plexes and 6plexes is a larger development for us. So we're talking about like one affordable unit.
So, Mr. Mayor, I've just looked up some AB 1505 provisions, and I'd just like to read it. And it's probably easier to read it than it would be to try to give you my interpretation of it. It says AB 1505 provides HCD authority to review economic feasibility studies related to rental inclusionary housing ordinances. However, HCD is not required to review these economic feasibility studies, and local governments are only required to submit the studies upon HCD request. Further, HCD will not review the actual inclusionary ordinance pursuant to 1505. HCD's review is limited to a review of an economic feasibility study that provides evidence that the ordinance does not unduly constrain the production of housing. AB 1505 did not alter HCD's review authority of inclusionary ordinances, rental and owner, as part of this obligation to review housing elements of the general plan. So they clearly have the ability up to 10 years to review an economic feasibility study that justifies the ordinances that we have. So your council can take action tonight. And then obviously we'd get into a relationship with HCD if they choose to review our feasibility studies. And we can clearly do those. Kaiser Marston does them all the time. And we have samples of many of them that we can provide to the council.
What's our action tonight?
The action was to introduce the ordinance. And then the adoption will occur on June the 7th with the resolution to adopt the actual fees.
Can we change the rental amounts and still introduce it tonight?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to, can I make a motion? Do other people want to?
Do we have, is public comment done?
Oh, sorry.
But actually had it.
Open it up for public comment.
Sorry.
That's right.
Seeing no one rise for public comment. Oh, there we go. Fred Albach.
Hi, I think that we lost a lot of our troops on that budget part of the agenda here, so that's too bad. Hopefully some of the other folks will come in here and chime in. I was hoping that Susie and Jesus would have a chance to speak. I support the bulk of these changes, and I think, in any case, if you go 12.5 very low, 12.5 low, that would, what's going on here? Oh, I'm getting timed. Then I think that would be, a vast improvement on how it's been. But I would like to suggest a few modifications. I trust legal aid lawyer looked at this and they are not completely fooled by what's going on, and that a 20% rental inclusion at 80% AMI and below would be fine. And so I would suggest that for the rentals that you go 5% extremely low, 5% very low, and 10% low, or in any case, you put 5% extremely low income in there. Let's see. It's I'm really flustered here by this timer here. This is not good.
Take it down.
Can you take it down?
Hide the timer.
Thank you.
Reset to 3 minutes.
Thank you. That would be great. Okay, let's see. So where am I here? So I guess there's a difference in legal opinion here, because Susie's opinion was that you could go above the 15% if the city met two criteria: that you had met all your above moderate housing for the last 5 years, and that you had submitted your housing element for the last 2 years. And so the city has clearly met those two requirements. And so it seems like that the feasibility study is only required after that. And so that was from a reading of AB 1505 by the legal aid legal staff. So I think there's a difference of legal opinion here, but hopefully if it's not worked out tonight, that can be worked out at a later time. And I can't imagine that I would make a more persuasive argument for extremely low income. And it's very disappointing that no one even took that up. Jesus Guzman of Generation Housing gave a lot of data that shows it's clearly justified that this kind of housing is necessary. And so the city seems to be more concerned about meeting the RENA allocation than serving the people here that the city went to a lot of trouble to get $15 an hour for. And so I think that to leave the ELI out is really unconscionable. So that's disappointing. Let's see. So I would hope that you would put that in. As far as the ownership, I talked with David Begode of Habitat for Humanity, and he said that Habitat was able to do ownership units for low income people, and they worked to get the mortgage and they worked it all out. And so it's something that can be done. So I guess that's about it. Hopefully some of my folks will chime in and they haven't all left me here by myself. I thought my letters were really persuasive. I thought the legal aid at Generation Housing was really persuasive. And I just don't know what more I could do that I couldn't convince you. So sorry, that's my comment.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just follow up on Fred's comment, I'll read some more. This is from a bulletin called Rental Inclusionary Housing, put out by HCD, and I'll just read it. It's very brief. It addresses what Fred had just said. There's a lot of detail here. It says only inclusionary ordinances that require more than 15% of the total number of units to be rented by households at 80% or less of area median income are subject to 1505. Then the findings that Fred was talking about, that one of them is true. There's another one. HCD may review any inclusionary rental housing ordinance if it finds either of the two things following. Number one, the jurisdiction has failed to meet at least 75% of its share of its above moderate income housing for the RENA, and that's prorated based on the length of the plan, whether it's 5 years or 8 years. And then secondly, if the jurisdiction has failed to submit the annual housing element reports, those APRs that we've been doing for at least 2 consecutive years. So neither of those two things apply. So one could argue that HCD will not require a 1505 review. The trick would be to see if we can stay below 80% or less of the AMI in the households that we've been talking about.
Well, let me expand on that a little bit further. David is correct. Those two findings have to be, those two factual situations have to be in place before the HCD even has the authority to look at an ordinance that the council might adopt that exceeds 15% for very low, and extremely low income families. So there needs to be two things in existence before HCD even has the authority to require the city to do a study to justify imposing a greater than 15% low income requirement, rental rent requirement on developers. David has just told us that those two findings, those two facts do not exist. The city has not missed 2 consecutive years of its annual report to HCD, and it has met at least 75% of its obligation to provide for above moderate income households in its housing element. That means that HCD does not have, as I said before, I'll repeat myself again, does not have the power or authority to require the city to conduct some kind of an analysis as to the impact of requiring more than 15% low, very low, or extremely low income households in a rental project. So the city council is free to require more. So the 12.5 plus 12.5 proposal that the planning director made earlier on will fly. It will not trigger a requirement by HCD to do a study to justify that.
Christina, can you put up the
I didn't get that.
Could you put up the slide again?
Which one?
The one with the numbers.
The proposal.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
The highly colored one.
I do want to say we do have 2 more people for public comment.
Oh, I thought public comment was closed. Sorry.
No, David started responding to Fred and we got a little sidetracked. So if you don't mind, if we could get the last 2 people in for public comment, I think that would be great. Go ahead, Caitlin Cornwall.
Good evening. This is Caitlin Cornwall representing Sustainable Sonoma. So Sustainable Sonoma is Sonoma Valley's broadest coalition, uniting economic interests, environmental interests, and equity interests around one table. A few years ago, after a lot of listening in various parts of the community, we decided that the biggest issue facing Sonoma Valley and challenging its future was housing affordability. And we've spent a couple of years digging really deeply into the causes and solutions of the situation, and recently produced an in-depth set of recommendations called Homes for a Sustainable Sonoma Valley. And so it's that background that I'm representing right now. And from the perspective of that coalition, I want to support the points that are made in the legal aid and generation housing letter from the perspective of leaders in Sonoma Valley, from the business sector to the environment sector to social justice, schools, youth, faith. Our community is in dire straits because people cannot afford to live here. And so we would urge you to have your policies make make the city more possible for lower income people to live in. And so again, I just want to support the points that are made in the letter, including low and very low income people in your policies. Those are the people who are most in need, who are leaving the valley and the city. And that bodes very ill for the future of our valley. And I'll just, notwithstanding what Jeff Walter just said about the likelihood that HCD could not require a study, it sounds to me like one of the biggest issues in public opinion, in the court of public opinion, is this question of whether requiring low and very low units in developments will stifle housing construction in the city. That seems to be an issue that the community needs to hear about. And if it's not true, people really, I think that's be a good thing for the city to make clear to the community. So again, I just want to emphasize, we have membership from the Chamber, the Visitors Bureau, the Veterans and Growers Alliance, independent business owners, as well as environmental and equity interests. And from all those perspectives, we need more very low and low housing in the city so that the city can become a more integrated place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have David Ransom.
All right. Thank you, Dave and Jeff, for making it clear that you can go farther than 15%. I appreciate that. As you know, Fred and I are both members of the Sonoma Valley Housing Group. I'm a member of the Spiritual Action Group of the Sonoma United Methodist Church. I live in Santa Rosa because I couldn't afford Sonoma. Thank you for taking up this issue. It's an important, very difficult issue. Those are the best. First and most important, let me say it's not the responsibility of the City Council to assure that developers maximize their profits, nor is it the responsibility of the council to assure that the city will grow for wealthy folks who won't live here full time. We don't have a housing problem, we have an affordable housing problem. I note Council Member Harrington's comment that market rate development in Sonoma, the developers say, is for wealthy people who don't live in Sonoma for their second homes and vacation homes. Living in Santa Rosa, I know that people know nothing about Sonoma. They have no idea that the Springs is part of the city. They have no idea, isn't part of the city. They have no idea that the unincorporated city is more populous than the incorporated city. They have no idea that the second largest concentration of low-income Latinx in the county lives in the valley. So it's an important development that Santa Rosa-centric folks like Legal Aid and Generation Housing are weighing in on this. Besides bringing in important insights, like, for instance, whether or not the city can legally go up to 20% affordable, they show that what Sonoma does is important to the whole county, which is watching. Before the pandemic, I regularly drove into Sonoma in the late afternoon and saw all the people driving home from work in Sonoma. Or if I went in earlier, I'd be part of all the people going to work in Sonoma for the evening shift at restaurants. Took me an extra 15 minutes. So the Sonoma Valley Housing Group is excited to support Legal Aid and Gen H's letter to provide additional income targeting for extremely low income households earning at or below 30% of area median income, where the need is greatest, to consider requiring at least 20% of new rental units be affordable to low income households earning 80% of AMI or below. And we note Legal Aid's advice that you can do this. We're glad to support you in this. Thank you for taking it up.
Okay, great. Seeing no one else rise for public comment, we'll bring it back to the council. Okay, can we have the numbers back up?
Mr. Mayor, while that's going up, just something to put down on paper, you could, for example, based on what I've heard, you could do for rental, you could do 12.5 BLI, 12.5 low, and then for sale, you could do a 12.5 split as well. for moderate, and then 12.5% for middle. From an administrative standpoint, that'd be awesome, because then we know it's 12.5%. We just have to switch the categories as you go from rental for sale. That'd be an ease of administration issue that would be appreciated. At least on staff's perspective, it'd be easy to kind of keep track of that in our heads.
Yeah, I do think that this comment about ELI is important going forward, and I think that we do need to build. I think you know, to the point that Caitlin Cornwall made, we are expanding significantly the amount. What's been proposed is expanding the amount of low and very low income rental units, and for the most part, I think that that's where that community is going to be able to find housing, is in rentals rather than in for sale. And I think that,
If I can, to support what you're saying there, please keep your eye on the ball here, because we currently don't have a VLI component in our community. This would be the introduction. So whether it's 5% or 12.5%, you would be addressing that lower spectrum from 30 to 80%.
yeah, my only concern is I do want people to build both rental and for sale in the future. I think both are really important parts of our community, and you know, we could look at proposals that, you know, straddle the income with, you know, 10% extremely low, 10% very low, 10% low on rental, and then 15 and 15 on for sale. I wonder if there would be concerns about that, you know, leading to lack of development or houses not being built. If you'd say you had a 60-unit apartment building, although you are getting pretty exorbitant rents at this point for market rates. So I don't know. That sounds decent to me. Or 12.5, 12.5 and a 5, or a 10, 10 and 5. I can see going low, 10%, very low, 10%, 5% ELI for rental. What does council think about that?
I would like to do, I mean, I like the original proposal, which was 12.5% very low and 12.5% low, period. And then for sale, I think 10 and 10 is okay, or 12 and 10 is okay.
10 and 10 of what? 12 and 10 of what?
Low and moderate.
Okay, so none of the middle?
At this moment in time, yeah, I would get rid of the middle.
Yeah, I would go, see, for me, I would go 10. I would be more interested in seeing like a 15 and 15 moderate and middle, or 10, 10 and 5 on for sale. I just think on the for sale units, we need to provide opportunities for the middle class to buy, because right now they're unable to do it with the options that are available. And they're constantly competing with people that have a lot more money than them and getting outbid. And I just think like this, having that cap as far as an income cap kind of protects you as an owner from somebody who's going to come in and try to buy a second home.
I have a quick question. So the low AMI band, David, is 60 to 80%, right?
Yeah.
So if we say low, does a developer get to build at 80, or does he build at 60, or do we have the right to say
within that bandwidth? Yeah, within that bandwidth.
Right. So if a low bandwidth is 60 to 80, wouldn't a developer always pick 80?
Well, that's the household income, right?
Correct.
So it's not the developer builds the house, and then the band is who qualifies for it.
Mm-hmm.
The price is fixed.
The price is fixed per price. Yeah. The price is fixed at 80 and at 60. There's a different price.
The price is like, it's 400 grand and you can buy it if you make between 60 and 80.
Okay, so the thing I'm looking at right now, they have prices for 60%, and they have prices for 80%. And so, you know,
I can look at one of our for sale agreements, but I think the prices, it's a certain percentage based on the market rate, and then whoever qualifies, it's in that band. But
so a for sale 3-bedroom home in Sonoma County at 60% would be 302, and at 80% would be 403. I mean, there's different prices per 60 and 80. And so I'm just wondering, do we have the ability to to require in that low 60, 80 band to choose the 60 versus the 80. That's the
I don't know if you'd want that though, because you're going to have people that are all along that income striation. And I think the point, and I think it actually makes sense from a policy perspective to say, you know, because then if you're at 80%, then where are you going to be able to purchase or rent housing, right? So I think just saying like, hey, within this band, based on your income, that's where you fit. I don't know what protections there are for somebody who comes in at say 70% income or 65% of the income, of area median income, to make sure that that house is sold to them at the appropriate price for their income and that there's no discrimination to try to pick somebody who's at 80%. Just given how the way that most market rate developers are, and market rate works in the world, I would guess that there is some amount of discrimination.
But the way that the system works now is the developer gets to pick.
I don't think that's what's being said. I think what's being said is that they put it at that 60 to 80, and then they come in and they have to accept application.
Why don't we do this? Can we do something just to like knock one out? Can we take a straw poll on rental and knock that one off? So my proposal for rental is 12.5% very low and 12.5% low. What do people think about that?
I support that.
I was good with that.
I good for this.
Can I clarify on that, Director?
Sales.
Does that exceed our 12 or 15% though? Doesn't that, no?
We
You
realize
have to
that
worry
that's
about the
not relevant.
15%.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay. Okay, so for rentals,
I
we
wouldn't
would,
mind adding a 5% ELI to that.
To go to 30.
Yeah. Does anybody support that, or are we against that?
well, I'm thinking,
Wait, brother.
I'm thinking.
what does, so it would be 12.5% low, 12.5% very low, and 5% ELI?
That is for the rental or for sale?
Rental.
A rental, oh, okay. Yeah,
Um,
I agree, yeah. I agree, yeah.
You could bring it down to lower on the LI and VLI.
If we want to stay at 25, we could do 5, 10, 10.
Yeah.
Or if you want to go to 30, it's,
Or we could just do any number that's divisible by 3. You know, and just do the same percentage in each. So we could do 28% and it's 7% in each.
Are we still on rent or sale?
Yeah.
You're on the rent.
I like that.
All right. How about that then? So we would do 7% ELI, 7% very low, and 7% low. Total of 28. I would support
20,
that.
that's 21.
Oh shit. Oh, sorry. Sorry. That's 4. We're gonna have to come up with a 4th category.
I think 10, 10, 5 is good.
10,
Low,
10, 5.
Yeah, and ELI.
That's fine.
I didn't hear it.
10 low, 10 very low, 5 ELI.
Okay.
That's fine for me.
So, can you say that again?
I got it, Christina.
Okay.
Okay, so then we'll do the ordinance, but change it to those numbers for rental. And then on sale, the mayor would like more moderate, less low.
Yeah.
I don't think there should be any.
Yeah, I have my second thought because something reminded me. Still, we needed to give the low income the residents the chance, because right now a lot of the creative ideas to find the financing for the house, and also Further Arabic also just mentioned, some of the nonprofit organizations have found some resolution. And also remind me, somebody, I think they in the Marine City, they find some the down payment for certain the residents and to buy the house because they are under the Section 8. Because Section 8 is the federal government program. So that basically they finally, they couldn't, buy the house. So I still want to keep at least 5 for the very low income for sale. Another 10%, or 5% or 15%.
So Jack, you want to add a new category of very low at 5%? Or you want 5% low?
Put it a low, put it a low.
Low, okay.
Put it a low, sorry. Yeah, it's not very low. Put it a low. Mhm.
And this is sale, right?
Yeah.
This is sale.
I mean, I support myself 10. I don't know. I could support 10% low and 10% moderate. I don't know. And I could support the current proposal the way it is.
I just think here's my 2 thoughts on this. Is one, middle income again is basically close to market rate, so I don't think it hurts developers to increase that number. I don't think it's particularly damaging. I also feel like if we're going to 25% and adding an ELI category in rental, we got to kind of balance it on for sale so that there's either or kind of choice between the two. So because it's basically this very, very close to market rate at 160% AMI, and all it does is protect these homes from going to second homes. I would at least like to see 10 out of 10, low, moderate, and middle, or 5, 10, and 15, low, moderate, and middle. As is the moderate, as is the low, as is all these. But really, I think when you talk about people who are, professionals in Sonoma, it's difficult for if you've got 2 people living in the house and they're both making $50,000, you're out of most of these income brackets already.
And if I could just summarize, so it sounds like there's some consensus for the rental category. For sale, what's being proposed is exactly what we have now, but adding 5% for middle. So it's a pretty minor change. It's providing some additional benefits for working class.
What is the income level for middle?
It's 160% AMI and below.
121, 160. Yeah.
What is the dollar amount?
So 100% of AMI is for one person is 71,000 is 100% of AMI. So 71 times
142.
Sure. But the problem becomes with AMI limits is that when you look at 2 people at 100% median income, that's 82,000. It doesn't double. And when you look at 2 people in moderate income at 120% AMI, you're looking at 98,000. And when you're looking at 3 people, let's say it's 2 people and a kid at moderate income, that's 110 grand.
Well, what's the middle?
The middle
For a family, yeah.
Middle would go up. So if it's 100,000 at 2 people, it would go to 160,000 at middle for 2 people. For 3 people, it's 110. So I don't know, roughly 170, 180,000 for 3 people, two parents and a child. And these are super high incomes,
I guess my 2 thoughts are, assuming that they sell, the number one best way for people to have savings nowadays basically is through their real property. And so for low and moderate people, those are the people that will have the least amount of savings. So it's kind of in a way the most important for them. And also you know, it allows obviously intergenerational people to continue to live in Sonoma. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see the problem, but I also am like, you know, there's only a certain percentage of development that we should control. What is the percentage? Is it 25%? Is it 30% that we should tell developers what they can do with? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think like you think about a family starting off, if you're going to have enough money to try to buy a home, two people making $50,000 each in Sonoma County, considering the rents they're going to be paying prior, is pretty tough to save up a lot to buy a home. And right now, if you're making $50,000 each, you don't qualify for anything. So you're only on the free market. You're only on free market. And that's the point of this middle income percentage, is to create that opportunity for somebody who's, you know, restaurant manager or something like that to save up to buy enough. And I get what you're saying about for sale and things like that. And there would be income caps on this for sure, but you still recoup your principal. You still recoup the cost of the home, plus there's a little bit, you know, of percentage growth over a year. And if you were coming in at say 140% AMI, you could still sell it for more than what you bought it for, because you could sell it up to 160%. So I don't know. I think it really creates opportunities for young families. And, you know, you see three people, two children, two people and a baby at 110, or four people, mother, father, and two children at 123,000. That's your top end income for 120% AMI. And in terms of like developer control, it's not that much different than market rate, or at least you can still turn a profit selling it, I would expect, at 160% AMI. Even for a family of four, I think if I remember correctly, you can sell a home to them for over 400 grand. And that's considered affordable.
I think I've heard in other communities, and I could see this happening here, the more low for sale units we have, as Councilwoman Harrington said earlier, you know, and as we've been talking about actual real incomes, it's very difficult to obviously save. And so what I worry about, I mean, anytime you enact policy like this, you're going to have consequences that we want, but you're also going to have unintended consequences. And I could see, you know, I've heard about this in San Francisco and other communities, that these for sale low units are snapped up by young people that make not very much money, but who get the down payment from their parents. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but I don't know if it's going to result in what we want to create. You know, the opportunities for families that want to stay here. You could ultimately just be getting, you know, young people that are helped by their parents to buy some of these very low for sale units. And so I guess what makes me uncomfortable just sitting here playing around with percentages is I would really like it to be backed up with, you know, real exhaustive data and analysis. And it just makes me uncomfortable just going about it this way.
Sure.
All right, let's do 5. I agree with the statements about the lack of data, but I'm going to have to imagine that the Planning Commission thought about this very thoroughly, as has the staff. So how about we do 5% low, 10% moderate, 10% middle?
I'm okay with that.
I'd be more comfortable at 5% low, 10% moderate, 15% middle, personally.
Okay, I'm still going to stick with my proposal.
I don't think we should have any low for sale, as I've said, but.
Okay, well, we have a variety of proposals.
You want
I
to
like mine.
consider Councilmember Harrington's as the motion on the floor? It's been seconded by Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the motion, or what are the percentages?
5% low, 10% moderate, and 10% middle. Are we going to have a roll call, or?
And have we done and what's the for rent percentages?
12 and a half. It's, sorry.
5 ELI, 10 very low, and 10 low. So that would be the motion on the floor.
25%.
Yeah.
All right.
Would it be possible for somebody who's sharing their screen to just write that on a, a document so we can look at it
Yeah.
real quick?
What I can do, I'll just copy this slide and then change the percentages and share it again. Is it ELI? Is that what you say?
Yeah, 5% ELI, 10% VLI, 10% LI. No mod and no middle.
And what did we say for ownership? We said 10 middle, 10 moderate, 10 low?
No.
5.
5% LI.
5 low, 10 mod, 10 middle?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like it's always been that way. All right, I make a motion that we approve this ordinance with these changes.
Second.
Sorry, was that, who was the second? There were two of you.
Sounded like
Second.
We said with rental, I thought we were low and very low. Extremely low, low, and very
Oh
low.
yeah, that's wrong, sorry.
Yeah.
You,
No moderate.
No
no
moderate.
moderate. Low. Good catch.
Thank you. Still got it.
Okay, I amend my motion to make a motion to approve this ordinance with these changes.
Second.
Okay.
Vote.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
No.
Councilmember Dean,
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
and Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-1.
That was simple.
Mr. Mayor,
Was it?
in the interest of time, I could do the next staff report in less than 2 minutes. I know Christina had a PowerPoint, but I could do a very brief update on appeals if you still want to go beyond 9 o'clock. Well, I think we're beyond 9 o'clock.
Oh yeah. Do we want to continue on with the meeting? We got to do that vote.
Let's see.
I promise I can do it in 30 seconds or less. If that
Yeah,
helps.
I want to continue on with it, but I'm gonna leave probably before the consent calendar. I
Okay.
mean, at the end.
So I move that we continue on with the meeting. Go a
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Monty,
Aye.
Councilmember Dean, or I'm sorry,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett.
Aye.
There, sorry about that. Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Great. Next on to item 6.2.
Mr. Mayor, Christine, if you could put up the revised exhibit showing the fees that the council adopted at the last meeting, and then just tee up the Sonoma Valley School District map, that'd be great. So council, at your prior meeting, we adopted some revised fees. We thought it necessary to bring the exhibit back to the resolution, have you adopt a resolution. We actually adopted a resolution, but we need to rescind that because we didn't have the correct exhibits together. So Christine is going to show you the revised exhibit, and then we provided a definition in there based on a discussion that your council had regarding the boundaries of what a resident is or is not. We had initially provided a definition of a resident as being within the city limits, but based on your discussion, we provided a modified diagram to include people within the valley that would be considered a resident. So should your council approve the action tonight, the appeal fees would be the amounts that we put in the exhibit that relate to the school district boundaries. And that concludes staff's report.
Great. Thank you.
I can't see the fees.
Is there a way to blow that up, Christina?
Is that better?
Down? There we go.
So for a major permit, Madeline, it's $500 for a resident, $1,000 for a non-resident. For a minor permit, it's $500 for a resident and $500 for a non-resident.
That's correct. And down below, we've defined the boundary as what a resident is considered.
Yeah, we discussed it last time. Yeah, we all.
Yeah, we just put
any problem
it for you. We put it into print for you, and we also wanted to bring up the definition of resident based on your discussion.
I thought that we had a difference between major permits and minor permits during our discussion.
We do. So that's the category on the top, major permits. That's where there's the differentiation between the resident and non-resident.
Difference in cost.
I have a question on this, actually.
I thought we were 1,000 on resident for major permits.
Christina, can you go back to the April proposal that we'd had in there that then was changed to the one that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, I thought it was 1,000 and like 2,500 for non-resident.
That's what we were recommended last time, and there was some concern about it being accessible.
Excessive?
No.
No, I don't think so.
I thought we just brought the 5,000 down to 2,500.
Yeah.
And on minor, I think we equalized them.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
On major permits, we could do resident 1,000, non-resident 2,500, and then minor permits 500.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. And then definition of resident is okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I have a question about this. Now, for example, Mockingbird, a lot of people would view that to be a major permit, but didn't they do a categorical exemption on?
Yeah, if you'll look, that Mockingbird, Councilmember Barnett, was a tentative subdivision map. So that would be how we would define it, not based on the CEQA at this point, because it's a combination of multiple things here on this chart.
Okay. All right, that answers my question. Thank you.
Well, I'm very pleased about this, David and Christine.
Okay.
Great.
Do you open it up for public comment? Seeing no one rise, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the council. Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett.
Aye.
Councilmember Dean. Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for all the hard work you all have done on the ad hoc committee and in planning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, item number 6.3, introduction of ordinance to the city council of the city of Sonoma, amending sections, blah, 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 blah. We'll go to planning director, David Storr.
Public Works Director Ferguson.
Public Works Director Ferguson.
What?
Mayor Harvey, members of the council, Chapter 12.14 of the code provides a uniform procedure for installation of public improvements, and staff is proposing some changes to that section of the code. The reason the code is there is to require orderly development and improvements of public property consistent with public health and safety for the general public good. I want to make sure the council understands the general public includes a range of users, children, elders, people pushing or pulling strollers and delivery carts, using a wheelchair or scooter, or traveling with a long white cane or a service animal. So this chapter provides certain exceptions to public improvement requirements, and one of them is work that is less than $40,000 in valuation. That was put in place in 2009. So staff is recommended that exception dollar amount be increased to $50,000 due to inflation and an increase in the consumer price index since the valuation was last established in 2009. The code section also has exemptions for certain types of projects, and these include re-roofing, solar water heating, and solar photovoltaic electrical installations, and accessibility improvements. The staff is recommending the council expand the list of exempted projects to include building permits for energy storage systems, electric vehicle charging stations, and generator installations. And we're also recommending that since the benefit is ultimately to the property owner, that the existing hazardous conditions and existing public improvements be mitigated by the owners of the lots or portions of lots fronting on any portion of the public street covered by this code section. Tonight, staff recommends the council introduce an ordinance amending chapter 12.14 public improvements construction of the Sonoma Municipal Code, hold a public hearing. Should the council introduce the ordinance and hold a public hearing at this meeting, it could adopt the ordinance at its meeting on June 7th, and the ordinance could be effective 30 days thereafter. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Director Ferguson? Seeing that, I'll go ahead and open up for public comment.
This is a public hearing.
Yeah, I do have for public comment, correct? Go ahead and open it up for public comment. Bring it back to the council.
Move to approve.
Second. Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Dean, Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Great. On the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by single motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action. At this time, the council may change the order of the agenda. Anybody wishing to pull an item of consent calendar?
I don't have any item to pull.
Okay, great. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, we'd ask that your motion include a continuance of the Sonoma Ecology Center item. You don't have to pull it separately. You could just say that your consent calendar motion includes that being continued to the June 7th meeting.
What item number is that?
5. Is it 5? No, 6 or 4.
7.4.
Okay, great. Open it up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the council for session. I would like to propose a motion that we approve the consent calendar, but also move item 7.4 to the June 7th meeting.
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. All right, we're on to council member comments. Any comments from members of council?
I guess my only comment is that Mayor Harvey let everyone know today that he is leaving our town to pursue his job opportunities, and how wonderful it's been having him be our mayor for the last year and a half, and how much we'll miss him. And that's my only comment.
Thanks. Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah, it's been amazing, Mr. Mayor. You know, it's as I said to the Sonoma Index Tribune, it was like, where's Waldo? You were everywhere, feeding people, vaccinations. You didn't give them, of course, but I mean, just you were everywhere. When anyone needed anything, you were there for them, for business, for people, for residents, retail, all of it. So I really appreciate your leadership. You're a wonderful role model for everybody. Thank you.
That's kind of be my limit.
Well said.
Thank you. And of course,
Logan, thank you. Yeah, you're inspiring a lot of the people. The only thing that a pity is because you just like a hero, affordable housing, a hero when you're not wrong. I still remember, but you did a lot, although just only, 3 years something, but I think what you did more than your turn. So that the best wishes, and it's really, really, it's a big issue, for our community. It's not only for you. Good luck for you and the best wishes for you.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I'll be here on the 7th as well, so you're not rid of me yet, and I'm really excited to have that in-person meeting. And to every single one of you, I really appreciate your support, and anything that I've accomplished has been a team effort, and so it's been important to have you guys on board for that. And to the staff, you guys are the best in the world. It's just been so wonderful to work with you as well, and I just really, really appreciate all that you do. Anytime you're up in the Pacific Northwest, I'd be happy to host any of you guys. You're all my friends, and all people that I really, really respect deeply. And I don't want to cry, so I'll probably stop there. But this is just such a wonderful community, and so lucky to be born and raised here, and really honored to be mayor, and for you guys to select me twice was truly wonderful. So thank you. Glad to do it. And sad I have to go, but it's the right move for my family. So thank you so much.
So I have a report unless somebody else would like to comment.
Please.
Okay. Oh, all right. So I'm with the Friends of the Library, and this is a momentous moment with the library. They're having a book sale, and they're in their parking lot, May 23rd, 10 to 3 p.m. There is no parking, so you have to find something. But I'm telling you, they're amazing at raising funds. I've never met a group of people who raise so much money for the library and do so much work. That's it for me.
All right. Do you have any reports from our illustrious city manager?
No, thank you, sir.
Jeffrey Walter, attorney at law.
Here I am. No, I have nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'll miss you too, Mr. Mayor. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Likewise. All right. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting and bid you all adieu. Until next time.
Adieu.